Fortunate end result is we're down now one firefighting aircraft for tomorrow. Fortunately, we have two super scoopers, but now until they finish the inspection process, which hopefully will be quick, any repairs that need to be made will hopefully be fast. But at least for the start of the day tomorrow, we may not have both super scoopers in action. We do have other tankers and other aircraft that are available too, but that's the end result, and that's why it's just
vital resource.
Yeah, this is why we don't fly drones unauthorized around any of these fire areas.
And you should know this, right? Anybody who does this and goes through their certification would know that you're not allowed to do this, and there are restrictions in place for that reason.
Right. It's also common sense not to be flying drones around fire areas where they're doing aerial attack. But yeah, there are rules that you should know if you're going to be operating drones. And one of those rules is you don't operate in flight restrictions, which is always put in around the fire. And two, you don't operate in fire areas, just period, even if there isn't a flight restriction. If there are aircraft doing water drops or retardant drops, anything like that, they're going to be flying low to the ground. And that just puts the aircraft at risk of being hit if you're flying a drone.
You have I'm assuming every drone has an identification number. It's attached to an owner. How difficult or how easy will this investigation be?
Well, that's the thing. Everything is supposed to. So it's one of those things where it's, a lot of people probably got drones for Christmas kind of thing. You're supposed to be registering them with the FAA because then you can mark or write down the registration, usually like on the battery or inside of some compartment of the drone itself. Mm-hmm. Not everybody does that. I like to assume most people do, or they're supposed to follow the rules, but most likely there is a way to be able to trace the drone back if they have parts of the drone or something like that within the aircraft itself. So we'll have to see what they have recovered.
All right. Your expertise is invaluable once again.
Once again.
Thanks, David. Joining us on the phone right now, we have Margaret Stewart from LA City Fire to tell us a little bit more about what's happening. We had a lot of action today, a lot of things happening, a new fire starting, a person detained there in that Kenneth fire. Can you give us the very latest on what you're hearing about all of this?
Hello. So regarding, hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we got you. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So regarding the Kenneth fire, that was this afternoon. Obviously, it started in LA City territory, and we had evacuation orders in place, and the fire, due to the wind, pushed into LA County and Ventura County territory. So our orders were lifted, and LA City became an assisting agency. So that incident is now under the command of Ventura and LA County.
Let's talk about how fast that fire moved into Ventura County. You guys hit a lot of aerial assaults here. It's something we needed on a day like this.
Absolutely. We've talked about it before when we have these kind of fast-moving brush fires, especially when there's mountainous terrain involved. Our air operations is our first line of offense, and they're going to go in, make continuous drops, start knocking back the front while we can then get the ground firefighters in place to put out the hose lines and continue the ground assault.
Can you talk a little bit about, we saw the aircraft, that was great. They did a wonderful job, but we also saw the ground crews. This is very rugged terrain, and I'm assuming it's very difficult to work in it.
Absolutely. We have a term in the industry, we call it billy goating. It takes a special person to be able to get up through the mountains under those conditions, and there's some areas that we just can't physically get to, which is why the teamwork between the ground and the air support is so critical, and that's where you have success.
We talked to a homeowner who spoke to one of our reporters out in the field, and he was extremely prepared, but he says this is the reality of living in a neighborhood like this. So explain the importance of having a good relationship, not only with the residents in a community like this, with the LAFD and with other surrounding fire agencies.
Well, part of that good relationship that you mentioned is when our citizens adhere to and follow the good brush control the brush clearance requirements. Having that clearance around their home gives us what we call defensible space, and allows us to bring the offense in on a fire if you provide the defense by having brush clearance. So that us inspecting these properties, ensuring that brush clearance is met, is critical in us being able to protect homes.
And Margaret, can you talk to us about what we just reported on the drone that collided with the Super Scooper? Now we understand the Super Scooper is down for repairs, and that's such a valuable resource. What do you know about this?
Absolutely. That occurred at about 1 o'clock this afternoon. That aircraft's call sign is Quebec 1, and they were struck by an unmanned drone that's not a part of the Palisades incident. So immediately following that collision, Quebec 1 returned to Van Nuys, reporting that they had wing damage but no injuries. So that aircraft, unfortunately, is now out of service until a further investigation is done into what, if any, repairs are needed. And this is a perfect example of why we say you cannot fly drones near emergency operations.
It's a vital resource for us to have, especially during times like this. Any idea how long that investigation/repair might take?
No, we're not involved in that end of it. So their repair crew will have to determine that, and we'll just hope that they'll be able to get the aircraft back in service, but we don't know how long that's going to take.
We went through the first 24 hours. It was so hard because the winds were too strong to fly. Then the aircraft got in the air. We were so relieved. So how frustrating is this for you?
Incredibly. And, the reality is that drone struck, one of the largest aircraft we have on the incident. If that same thing had happened with one of our helicopters, the potential outcome could have been much more disastrous. And we just can't emphasize enough that people need to stay out with their drones. There are, as you were discussing, there are legal requirements in order to fly a drone, and they are not permitted. It's against the law to be operating an emergency area.
Before we let you go, Margaret, we know that a person of interest was detained here involving the Kenneth Fire. Do you have any additional information on what is happening thus far?
No, I'll have to refer you to LA County and Ventura County. As I mentioned, it's their incident.
All right. Margaret Stewart there with the LAFD. We appreciate it. The Kenneth Fire holding out 960 acres. Thanks for your time here tonight.
Yep.
All right. Thank you so much, Margaret. A lot of people wondering what the winds are going to do. Are we going to bring in David right now to talk a little bit more? Because I know we've interviewed some people. They're packed up. They didn't actually get evacuated, but they're in that area.
Yeah. So we're kind of keeping track of the winds around all of the fires. We're still looking at some additional wind coming our way, or at least for the next couple of hours. We're still looking at some gusty winds in a few spots. But then we get a bit of a break, and then we potentially have more wind in the forecast. So I wanted to kind of give a recap of what we're seeing right now. And then we'll get a little bit more into a bit of the future, which Melissa was also touching on not too long ago. But let's take a look at the Palisades fire burn scar. So first of all, you can see the areas that have been burned here. And this has been the most active region, I think, which is up in the Santa Monica Mountains, approaching the ridge line, which is probably why it's been at times visible from the San Fernando Valley. But around the Santa Monica Mountains, we're still seeing gusts out of the north at about 36 miles an hour. That means that as the fires get to the top of the ridge line, they're probably being folded back on themselves. Around Malibu Creek, though, we've got winds out of the west. So two different directions going on here, and we've got gusts up around 32 miles an hour. The good news, though, is that in the lower elevations, it has been relatively light winds pretty much for a good portion of the night. And look at the humidity numbers now. Topanga Beach, 67% humidity. Santa Monica, 63% humidity. Melissa was talking about we get this overnight recovery with humidities in areas by the coastline. That's all that coastal moisture coming in. That is really helping out the lower elevations, but up at the ridge lines, still very dry right now. 10% humidity around Malibu Creek, 13% humidity for the mountains. Now, as you work your way farther inland to the Eden Fire, we do have the humidities coming up a bit in a few spots, like right now, 20% around Eden Canyon Park. But for the most part, it's still very dry, right about 15% for most spots. But the winds are all still calm right now, and that has been a huge benefit in keeping this fire from really raging out of control. Although it has been burning quite a bit through the San Gabriel Mountains and around the Mount Wilson area, and that was likely driven by some of the stronger winds in the upper elevations. So here's what we're looking at as we go through the next couple of hours and into tomorrow. This is Futurecast starting right around midnight tonight. You still see that we've got plenty of gusts out there, purple coloring around Ventura County. You've got some of that in the IE and Orange County. That's wind gusts 40 to 50 miles an hour. Now, as we go through the rest of the day for tomorrow, the winds will still be there, at least for the morning, but by the afternoon and evening, the winds all shut down and we get a bit of an onshore breeze. This is nice because we're kind of done with some of the Santa Ana winds, at least for this period, but this will also take some of the smoke and likely blow it back inland. So that's something else we're going to keep an eye on as we get into tomorrow and Saturday. Speaking of Saturday, as we get into the morning hours, we'll start to see the winds pick up once again. And as we get into the afternoon, they start to get gusty, but not quite as gusty as what we have just seen for today. And obviously nowhere close to the gusts we had the other day. The reason why is because the jet stream's in a bit of a different position for this, and it's not providing the best upper level support. So as I take a look at the overall picture here, the jet stream will be more north to south. It's our classic kind of setup for some of our weak to moderate Santa Ana wind events. Sometimes we'll get this with some of our stronger ones as well. But our concern is actually for beyond Sunday, because it does look like we'll have another area of low pressure that's going to drop down here, and it really reorients the jet stream into a similar position to what we had earlier this week. Not exactly the same spot, but this does provide the potential for maybe bringing about another round of very strong winds as we get into around the Monday, Tuesday timeframe. We're still working on exactly how strong it's going to be and when and where. And the reason why it's still a little bit difficult to figure out, if this low is slightly farther to the south, the jet stream's in a different position, and that brings a different amount of wind. Farther to the north, similar effect. If it's not as far, not as close to Southern California, it again will impact the amount of wind that we're going to be seeing, but definitely something we're keeping an eye on for next week. So expect to possibly have some more wind in the forecast. In fact, we haven't shown a 7-day forecast in quite a while. So let me show you the basin on top, coastline down below. Because the thing you're going to notice on here, look how much wind we have mentioned in this forecast. It'll be breezy for tomorrow, but by the end of the day, it's actually not that bad. For Saturday, it starts getting windy again. That'll carry into early Sunday. And then here's that next round of wind for Monday, Tuesday, and potentially Wednesday of next week. And I'll show you one more round of 7 days here. It's the valleys on top, i.e. forecast down below. Breezy for tomorrow. It gets better, though, during the afternoon, evening. We'll start to see more winds pick up as we get into Saturday and Sunday, but it's really gusty as we get into Monday, Tuesday, and potentially Wednesday of next week. Obviously, as we get closer and closer to this next wind event for next week, we will be updating you on the forecast. We're going to keep you on top of this as we get through it, but just I wanted to give an idea that we are looking at some more wind potentially for Saturday into Sunday, and then potentially some stronger winds as we get into the very start of the next work week. Back to you.
All right, David, I know you'll keep us informed. We don't want to hear winds necessarily at this point, but I know you'll keep us up to date.
We're done with it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to keep an eye on it for you.
Better to be prepared. All right. Kevin Geis is back with us. He is on the Kenneth Fire in West Hills with some new information on now that investigation, the arson investigation into the fire.
Yeah, good evening to you both. We've been watching sort of this investigation unfold. We were bumped back to the other side of this gate here a couple of hours ago, just waiting for a little bit of more information from officials. The incident under investigation started when a number of citizens detained an unidentified person spotted in the area of the West Valley, close to where the Kenneth Fire is burning. Now, we do have some video we want to show you, believed to be that potential suspect in handcuffs, reportedly down in the Calabasas area. We've blurred their face until we get some more information from officials. Now, it's not immediately clear that this person that the LAPD is talking to is responsible for the West Hills Kenneth Fire, but investigators are looking into it. They're also looking in to any possible connections to any of the other fires in the area. And obviously, sort of when this fire itself ignited, the Kenneth Fire, sort of at the top of Victory Ave here, we sort of watched as, you know, a lot of people in this area started packing their cars, filling their cars, getting ready to go. And I wanted to sort of chat with a neighbor here, Steve Cohen. You mentioned that you live right around the corner. Sort of describe for me what this afternoon was like for you and your family.
Was driving home, saw a big billowing smoke. Reminded me of the beginning of the Woolsey fire 5-6 years ago. My wife works at home, so she asked me to come home, talk to some neighbors, and tried to calm them down. I don't think they're locals, and tried to tell them that everything would be okay, that the fire department was on it, and that there was aircraft over it, thankfully.
Absolutely. When you saw those aircraft come in, you started watching those passes go through. I'm sure that sort of comes with a little bit of reassurance once they sort of arrive and sort of get those passes going.
Absolutely. You know, they're on top of things. It's fortunate the wind wasn't as bad as it's been, you know, because I'm sure, like everybody knows, the first night of the other two big fires, they weren't able to fly. So thankfully they were able to fly here. And also, thankfully, there's a lot of open trail. Anybody who's been up here, there's a lot of open land that it burned through before it was able to get to any houses. So thankfully, the guys got it taken care of. It's good for us, at least.
And around the corner from your home here, so now we've turned into a crime scene, potentially investigating arson. Did that surprise you at all once you sort of, that word started getting around the neighborhood?
No, not at all. Yeah. I think it's a huge coincidence that all these fires start at the base of a mountain where the wind's pushing it into homes. I don't think it's a surprise that it could be arson at all.
And you heard the wind. We sort of watched the wind pick up again. We hear the wind continue to come through. That wind starting to kind of come back a little bit in this direction. I understand that's sort of a huge part for you folks out here. Depending on that wind direction, sort of depends on how you're feeling sort of throughout the day.
Well, normally when fires start here, they burn northeast to southwest. That's the way the Santa Anas blow. So a couple nights ago was a problem. I've been out here my whole life, probably about as strong as I've ever felt it. Today is just a little breeze, but it sure plays havoc with fires.
And we caught you as you were delivering something special to some of the law enforcement here who have been spending all day here. Talk to me about why you wanted to come out here with some pizzas.
Here's a plug. My guys from Topanga Division in Departments 105 and 106, they got to eat. So either I feed them in the restaurant or come up here and I know that, but I've been noticing that there's a lot of people bringing stuff up here, so it's a pretty nice community. So.
Yeah, we've been watching a lot of water come through, a lot of snacks come through. The scene has cleared quite a bit. So are you headed anywhere else? What's sort of the plan for the rest of the evening now that the fire's sort of around the corner?
Home. Going to go in my backyard and watch NBC and watch the coverage all night long.
Absolutely, and we'll be on the air. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. It was great meeting you. Stay safe.
Pleasure. Stay safe.
Thank you so much. And Steve's one of many that have been coming through. We've been watching. There's actually a whole group of people who just dropped off a ton of water here, a ton of snacks. So we'll continue to update you when we learn more about the investigation itself into that potential arson. But for now, we'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
I thought I liked him when he said he was dropping food off. I like him even more that he's going to go home and continue to watch us. In the meantime, I wanted to tell you out there, the Kenneth fire, we're told, is now 35% contained, according to CAL FIRE. I'm telling you, you see it on your screen, so some good news there.
That is great news.
Yeah.
All right, treat your firefighters well. They'll treat you well, I always say. All right, Eliana Moreno is live right now with News Chopper 4, and she has made her way over the Palisades fire. Eliana, we're seeing flames from your chopper.
We are, Kathy, and this is the top of the ridge. I was showing it before when we were on the Pacific Palisades fire previously, and this is the top of the ridge that we were worried would have those flames start making their way northbound down into the areas of the San Fernando Valley, like the city of Tarzana. But at this point, it does seem to be holding right at the top of the ridge. So we don't anticipate that it is going to make its way to the other side, at least not with the winds the way they are currently. So at this point, it does continue to burn in that same general area north of those homes in Pacific Palisades that, of course, have tragically been lost. But the area that is burning is for the most part just terrain. There's really no homes up here. And so what I'm going to do is, if you bear with me for just a moment, I'm going to throw up our map so that you can see the difference between this live image and then our map image to give you a better idea of the area that is currently burning. So there where you see Topanga Canyon Boulevard, roughly that area there that I'm kind of zooming in on, that is the area that is currently on fire. So you'll notice that there really aren't any structures here. These are the Santa Monica Mountains. So it's just going to be vegetation. So we're not really concerned about structures. Of course, we're saddened for all of the animals that are in this area that are going to be displaced. Which is always a sad part about brush fires, even if they aren't burning structures. But as my pilot, James Pollard, continues to bring us around from the San Fernando Valley down to the Pacific Palisades side of the fire, the south side of the fire, that is where we will start to see some more structures, but again, at this point, not threatened. There's the 405. Let me go back to the live image so you can see the comparison. There's the 405 making its way through the Sepulveda Pass. Here's some homes here on the west side. This is Mount St. Mary's University. That is untouched. We know a lot of folks who have connections to this university, and it's always a concern. Fires do tend to get very close to that campus, unfortunately, but right now the fires are moving away from the campus, continuing to make that push towards the west and towards the ocean. But this area that I'm zooming in on here is still homes that were unburned. But as they continue to move the shot over to the west, we get to areas like Sullivan Fire Road. That is where we do see another little hot spot, but again, no structures as far as the eye can see. And as I continue to move the shot, it's going to get pretty dark, but in that darkness is more mountains. You can just barely make up the top of the ridge there, but this is more mountains. And then the area where the homes burned, I'm going to zoom in on that now, and you'll know that it's the homes because you're going to see a lot of police personnel, fire department personnel down there, and you really won't see much in the way of city lights because, of course, the electricity system has been turned off here because all of these homes unfortunately have burned, but that is the general area where those structures have been lost. So just to reiterate that, let me go back to the map image one more time so that we'll be able to look at the comparison. So you see all of those homes here, all of these homes that just touch here along the Pacific Ocean. And now that I'm going to move the shot back to the live image, it'll give you a better idea. You can see there's literally nothing left other than just pure darkness.
And you talk about the sheer numbers of homes that have either been destroyed or damaged, Eliana, well over 5,300. This is nearly a 20,000 acre fire.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, the devastation that this has caused. And I haven't had the opportunity to look at this area in the daytime, but my pilot, James Pollard, has been on this coverage now the last couple of days. And I was asking him, what does it look like? What does it look like in the daytime from the aerial perspective? And he said it's apocalyptic. It does not look like anything that we're used to seeing. To be honest, we don't come out here to Pacific Palisades for a lot of our helicopter stories because we typically cover crime, and we rarely come out here. It's really usually an area that we come out to for beauty shots because it's so beautiful. So a lot of our weather shots are typically out here in the Pacific Palisades area because you get that beautiful shot of the coast, these beautiful homes, the greenery and the mountains. So it's typically a go-to spot for us when it comes to some of those beautiful weather shots that we provide you throughout the day. But unfortunately, it's going to take a long time before we can call this area beautiful again.
And when you show us the map, we can see the names of all the streets where these homes were there, and you just look at all those names, and there were houses, homes, people's lives that they built along that area. 20,000 acres almost burned, 5,300 homes or structures damaged there, and that's what you're seeing right now. As you said, the only lights we see out there are from emergency vehicles right now.
Yeah, it's truly devastating, and unfortunately, we do still see flames, and I know that the people who are looking up at the Santa Monica Mountains, looking at the flames, of course you're going to be nervous, especially when I show you a shot like this, where you can see homes still on the right side of the screen that go deep into the mountains, and you do have those active flames still on the left side. But I can, if I can be of any sort of comfort, which is what we need right now.
We'll
if I could be
it.
of any sort of comfort, I'll tell you, the flames are moving away from these homes. So it's okay that these flames are continuing to burn this area, because at least that will burn through that brush and keep it from lighting up in other fires in the future, at least for a little bit of time till, of course, that vegetation grows back. But right now, it is continuing to push into the Santa Monica Mountains, where there really isn't anything in the way of structures. Again, here in the Pacific Palisades.
Yeah,
All
like
right.
you said, it is sad that the wildlife gets displaced or injured or killed, but we have great wildlife centers as well and people who are willing to help, so hopefully they could rehabilitate that so we don't lose even more of precious wildlife as well. All right, Ileana, thank you so much. If you would like to help wildlife relief efforts, NBC4 is partnering with the American Red Cross to help people affected. You can go to NBCLA.com or by calling the number on your screen.
All right, so David, we just saw that shot from Eliana's news shot before, and again, that fire is burning away from homes, which is a great thing. But again, we're triggered by the winds that we've already had, and we continue to ask about them.
Yeah, and the winds remain gusty still across some of our ridge tops, and you know, I was just thinking about the overall structure count that you were talking about, 5,300 structures.
53, yeah.
Oakland Hills fire, the Oakland Hills firestorm, 1991, 2,900 structures. That's the third most structures damaged in California history in a wildfire. I would not be surprised if either or both of these fires, the Eden fire and the Palisades fire, end up somewhere in the top 3 or 4 on the all-time destructive list.
Eaton's a lot as well. So
Eaton's about 5,000 as well.
And that's it's just incredible numbers. So like you go from 2,900, and then I believe the next one is the Tubbs fire, which was the fire that burned through the Bay Area suburbs around Santa Rosa, burned into Santa Rosa. And then, of course, the top fire was the one that burned through Paradise, the Camp Fire. Yeah. So it's obviously not great company to be in, and horrifying to think about that.
We called it historic. We called it historic winds, and now historic numbers and losses.
Yeah, and it does look like the wind just kind of continues here. Fortunately, not nearly as strong as it's been over the past couple of days, but we still have some gusts, but it's been mainly confined to the ridge tops. Eliana was showing you from News Chopper 4 some of the areas far up in the mountains burning. It's this area here that she was just showing you. Obviously, our fire perimeter, we can only update this so many times per day. It's a combination of the firefighters have to also go out and take a look at it. They have fire intel aircraft that they fly around, and they can map exactly where the fire has burned. And so we have to await updates from that. But sometimes the fire has worked its way out of the perimeter. But that area, earlier I was talking to Michael, this is about a mile to the west of the 405 that's burning, but it's all generally wilderness up there. But the good news about it is if you look at the wind directions right now, it's a north wind at 26 miles an hour, gusting up to 34 along some of our ridge tops. You can imagine the fire is getting up to the top here and then getting blown back on itself. So it makes it a little more difficult for the fire to cross over the ridge. Obviously, it would be a totally different ballgame if it gets over the ridge, but I really think that it's going to be prevented by this wind direction being out of the north. For Topanga Beach and for Santa Monica, the winds are still relatively light. The most noticeable thing on here to me as the meteorologist is that the humidity has jumped up significantly. We are up around 58% right now for Topanga Beach, in the 60% range for Santa Monica. Red flag conditions, we're generally talking less than 15% humidity. And if you look across the mountain spots, it is still bone dry, still about 10 to 15% humidity across the upper elevations. But down in the lower levels, we're getting a little bit of that recovery courtesy of the Pacific Ocean. Now, let's go to another fire. Let's go to the Eden fire here. You can see that the humidity here is still very dry. We're still talking about being in the teens, but the winds are all relatively light. Most of the gusty winds right now are confined to the San Gabriel Mountains. We knew that when we were going to get this round of wind for today into the overnight hours and early tomorrow morning, it wasn't going to be like what we had the other night, where essentially everybody got exposed to the winds. In this case, it's more of your classic Santa Ana pattern, which allows some of the San Gabriel Valley and the basin to be wind sheltered. And that's what we're seeing tonight. Even though it's been pretty gusty across parts of the region, a lot of these communities here, a lot of these foothill communities around Altadena, Sierra Madre, for example, they just haven't seen a ton of wind, and that has been a huge benefit around the Eden fire. Although we're still seeing a lot of smoke coming off of it, and that's leading to air quality concerns, and I'll get to that in just a second. Around the Kenneth fire, the forward progress was obviously stopped on this, but we're still keeping track of the conditions around the fire. You can still see through some of the canyons, we're still getting some pretty impressive gusts. So I don't want you to think that we are done with the offshore winds. They're still happening out there, and I'm sure if you live in Porter Ranch, Canoga Park, Northridge right now, you're probably nodding going, yeah, I hear it outside, because those are our typical windy spots. But if you look around Lost Hills Road, we're still seeing gusts 22 miles an hour. But around Calabasas, the winds are relatively light, only the occasional gust. But still, that humidity is concerning. We're down into the single digits right now around our open observation sites here, which are pretty close to where the fire is burning. All right, let's talk a little bit about the air quality. So the Eden fire has been putting up a lot of smoke today. You're probably, if you were driving anywhere around the San Fernando Valley or driving from the IE along the 10 or the 210, you probably noticed this just kind of gross looking cloud off in the distance, the smoke plume. The smoke plumes managed to just kind of sit near the surface. So for the areas in this red coloring here, this is what we consider unhealthy for everybody. The orange coloring, that is unhealthy for sensitive groups, respiratory issues, heart conditions, stuff like that. That's where we get concerned about in the orange region. So when it's red, that means you should not be out in it. You should really limit your outdoor activity. If you absolutely have to go out, you need an N95 mask. Not a basic surgical mask, not some of the the KF masks and whatnot that we've all adapted since COVID. An N95 mask or higher. And the reason why is because there's this it's meant to filter out the finest particulates. And the fine particulates is exactly what the smoke is putting out. And those particulates can get very deep into your lungs if you're breathing them. So that's why you want to wear a mask if you're outside in any of these areas shaded red, or you know what, even in the areas that are shaded in orange as well. So would not be surprised if around downtown LA, around eastern half of the San Fernando Valley, the Crescenta Valley, even into the San Gabriel Valley, a lot of people are probably smelling smoke. It's all from this fire. Now, you'll notice most of this is blowing to the south. In fact, yesterday, this red expanded farther into the basin. And I have a feeling as we go through the next couple of days, that's likely going to continue. Here's the smoke futurecast starting at 11 o'clock this evening. A little note on this. This is always dependent on the amount of fire activity that we're going to be seeing. The weather model that predicts smoke cannot predict how active the fire is going to be. It's just going to make an estimate here. But you see that the smoke is all blowing to the south. So again, it is affecting the San Fernando Valley, a good portion of the basin, not necessarily the IE in Orange County though. But as we go into Friday, we get a shift in wind direction, and you're going to start to notice that the poor air quality starts spreading east. So as we go through the rest of Friday, now look at parts of Orange County. Looking at some pretty bad air quality here, a lot of smoke in the air. Starting to see it more through Pomona into the Inland Empire. Starting to see a little bit less of it around the San Fernando Valley and around Ventura County. But with Friday, as we go through the overnight hours and into early Saturday, the winds get very light. They get variable, as we call them. And that means that they kind of can push the smoke almost in any direction. And by the time we get to 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, now look what we're waking up to. We've got pockets of maybe some poor air quality. This won't be smoke that blots out the sky kind of smoke. When you see this whiter color, it's very light and thin, but it might be something that you can smell. And that'll be across the IE, Orange County, the basin, probably into the San Fernando Valley and Ventura County. So we might all get a little chance of kind of getting some of this poor air quality until the winds pick up again as we go from Saturday and into Sunday. So here's what it looks like. A quick look at the wind gust futurecast here. You can see that we've got some gusty winds. Obviously, right now we're seeing that out there. As we go into tomorrow morning, it will get pretty gusty for some of our upper elevations like the Santa Susana Mountains, as well as the Santa Monica Mountains near the Palisade Fire. So we're going to keep an eye on that as we go through the overnight hours. But by the time we get into the afternoon hours for Friday, everything shuts down. And by the overnight, the winds are calm. Then as we go into Saturday and Sunday, our next round of Santa Ana winds picks up. But you'll notice some of these numbers on here, even though we have some purple, and that's wind gusts in the 40 to 50 mile per hour range, most of these numbers are down in the 20 to 35 mile per hour range. That is lighter than what we've been seeing for today, and that is significantly lighter than the damaging winds that we had. But still, this is an offshore Santa Ana wind. This is high fire danger. I would not be surprised if we end up with more red flag warnings as we get into the weekend. That's the latest on the forecast. I'll send it back to you.
All right, David, appreciate it. So we now want to get to NBC4's Macy Jenkins. She joins us live in Altadena at Lake and Alameda. Macy.
Hi, Michael. Well, we've been driving along Lake Avenue. There's so much destruction. I want to show you what we're looking at here. This was a car repair shop. And this is why you see so many cars here, all of them destroyed by the fire. A brake repair shop, oil changes. This used to be the garage. You can see where the that metal garage door would come up and you would drive the car in to get that oil change. That's what used to be right here. And next door, you can still see some smoldering just behind these cars. This was a dry cleaners. A dry cleaner was next door. And then next door to that, a cannabis store, all of it burned to the ground. And I'll have my photographer, David Gregory, kind of look at this smoldering here. It's not something that you want to get too close to because of the toxic fumes that are coming out of that. And of course, as David Biggar was saying, it's so important to have an N95 mask that can filter out those fine particles. But this is what we've seen all along Lake. Different businesses, different structures, homes destroyed, 4,000 at least structures and homes damaged or destroyed by this terrible fire. Now, in a few blocks in either direction, we'll see police lights. Most of those police lights are checkpoints. And those checkpoints are meant to keep looters out, meant to keep people out of this area who are taking advantage of a terrible situation, taking advantage of people being out of their homes, being evacuated, and just seeing if they can go through the rubble and looking for anything they can steal. Now, earlier in our coverage, we showed you what our newest DA, Nathan Hoffman, said about people who plan to come to these areas and commit a crime. He says that they will be arrested and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. We do know that the National Guard has made its way to this area to try to, I'll let my photographer David Gregory get a little more of this video, but we do know that the National Guard has been deployed to this area to stop the looters. A few minutes ago, we saw a law enforcement vehicle, unmarked, followed by a marked vehicle, rushing with lights and sirens up north towards Altadena Drive. We can only assume they were going because they caught someone or they saw someone doing some of this looting. We know that there have been about 20 arrests, 18 here in Altadena and 2 over in the Palisades area. But again, just another instance of the destruction and how fast and powerful this fire was. And of course, it's not over. We still know that they're working on putting out the hotspots. As we showed you earlier when we were over at the library a few blocks away from here, they were trying to cut off those gas lines. That's something that they're going to continue to have to do. It's going to take several hours, several more days to make sure that all of those hotspots are taken out, are extinguished. And if you'll just pan one more time for me over here, that is where the cleaners and the cannabis store used to be standing, just a small fire there. But here we have all of these cars. I mean, I count at least a dozen that have been wiped out by this fire. Michael, I'll send it back to you.
All right, Macy Jenkins there reporting live for us. Thank you.
All right, we're going to switch over to Robert Kovacic. He is covering Pacific Palisades. You've been there for the last 3 days, on and off, traveling around. And Robert, you talked to the commander last time. He was really hitting a positive note. I mean, as sad as it was, he said they're going to get together and at the Legion, they're going to offer assistance to people.
He was remarkable, Kathy, in the sense that he came on the air and he told us that the American Legion Post 238, one of the largest in the country, that he went to that post, and it is one of the few buildings, he said, that was left standing in a specific area. We were there with him and we saw that building is standing, and he and the 700 plus other veterans that are part of the American Legion here in the Pacific Palisades say that they are going to offer their services and that building to the city as a command post and as sort of the center of the rebuilding effort when it begins in the Pacific Palisades. If you forgive me, I am just reading something that we received from NBC News Investigates, and they tell us that a number of arrests have been made now in Santa Monica. Several individuals have been arrested, alleged criminal violations, burglaries in Santa Monica. This is one of the concerns that they have now, because these burglary charges and these looting charges is something that they have been very concerned about. And we are going to talk about that in just a second, because right now we are dealing with just a desolate area here in the Pacific Palisades. I want to sort of clarify, as we move forward, there is very little cell service in this area. So it is difficult for us to stop and start when we traverse Sunset Boulevard to be able to show you what we necessarily want to show you, because we don't have the capability to do that, because we just don't have cell service. What happened here behind me a short time ago, this was the San Bruno Fire Department was here, and as Susan Monroe pushes in for us here, this was a large fire that they dealt with. It looks like it was some type of storage facility for menorahs, actually. A number of menorahs, like the one you see there, right there on the ground, were on fire. They explained to us it was a very large fire, and they quickly put it out. San Bruno Fire Department from Northern California, they explained to me they got the call on Tuesday night. They were here by 6 a.m. They have been going since 6 a.m. on Wednesday and have not slept, and they have gone straight through it, and they are exhausted and weary, but they know the task at hand. So we are at Sunset. Susan, where did you say, what was the street that we were near?
PCH?
We're right near PCH. No, there was another one. Castlemar or something? Okay.
I can't remember.
Forgive me. I would tell you, but the streets are dark. This is Sunset Boulevard right here. Okay, this is Sunset Boulevard heading west. As we traveled from the Hartselle-Chautauqua area, which was really the center of the firestorm that we witnessed on Tuesday night, which has left most of that community damaged. We came down. We were at the area in the Palisades and the Highlands. And where those cars were, do you guys remember where the cars were that they had to bulldoze out of the way because people abandoned them in panic? Well, we checked out that situation. A number of those cars that were bulldozed also caught fire. So the fire must have spread at some point from the Highlands. So we saw a number of burned out cars. Captain Eric Scott, LAFD, advised me to check out the Highlands, that they were continuing to fight the fire there. We checked it out. It looked like it was in pretty good shape. What is really remarkable as we have traveled the streets of Sunset, and really the way to sort of describe what is going on here right now in the Palisades, the oohs and the ahs that we make is due primarily to the fact that we can turn down streets and suddenly, like on Bienvenida, you turn down it and there were houses that were completely intact. There were holiday lights on. There were still wreaths on the door. And you look at it and you think, these homes are spared. And you wonder if for those people that are living in this area, if they realize that their homes were spared. Kern County Fire just passing us right now as you look at the mutual aid that has come here. I'm bringing this up because field from people constantly, can you check to see if my home is still standing? Can you check to see if my home is still standing? We just went and had to deliver the news to someone that their home was not. And so you turn down these streets and it's just for some random reason, that wave of a firestorm didn't take out, as we saw near Hartselle and Chautauqua and Drummond, street after street of homes, that there on Bienvenida off of Sunset, that some homes were spared. And then you look behind us and then you look at Edgewater Towers up there, and it looks like that is in pretty good shape as well. And so right now, traveling Sunset, you have pretty much just emergency vehicles, first responders, and then let's get to what we originally wanted to talk to you guys about. We have talked to the LAPD, and we understand that there is a matter of, sort of legalities that they have to go through before they actually call for a curfew. However, here in the Pacific Palisades, as you see right there, you cannot enter the Pacific Palisades if you are a resident. You will not be able to come in tonight, even if you show ID, even if you explain it is a necessity. You can't enter the Palisades tonight in the dark of night. They have explained to us to come tomorrow morning. Once again, you can line up at a given roadblock. We were at the one at Mandeville, which was very long, and people had to patiently wait. And the reason why is you've got to show your ID. And that ID, you have to, it has to say on that driver's license your actual address. So I was talking to some poor woman who was trying to get Spectrum on the line, so Spectrum can explain to the police officers that yes, she actually does live at this address, even though the address on her driver's license is a office. That's very important. You also have to explain to them why you do need to go to your home. You have to perhaps have a prescription, but you need to explain to them you need to go to your home because it is for a medical reason for you or a family member. And then you have to wait, and then the LAPD will take you up to your home. They will wait for you patiently there, but it's not a time for you to look around. It is a time for you to get what you need and to leave, because a firefight is still going on here in the Palisades. As we told you about an hour ago, they were focused up in the hills, a small pocket of fire still with homes in peril that was pushing towards this end of Sunset, towards PCH, towards the ocean, that they were still very concerned about. But during our drive for those who know the area, Sunset and Chautauqua, almost all the way down here to the ocean, we had to stop because along the way there were forced closures. The LAPD and the LAFD or whatever fire agency wouldn't let us through because in one case there was an apartment building with a roof that was about to collapse, and they were trying to put water on it, and they were trying to make sure that that roof would collapse and whatever fire was in it would not spread. So that is the concern, like we saw here just a few minutes ago with San Bruno Fire Department putting out menorahs that were on fire in the storage bin, but it is quiet, it is smoky, and this area is completely off limits, as they explained, unless you are with the DWP or with a first responder or some type of emergency vehicle. They are bringing now in the bulldozers, they are bringing now in whatever equipment they can to make sure that the power is turned off for those loose power lines. The gas lines are turned off because we see little spot fires in what's left of homes, and then they are trying to focus on what will be the next step. But the next step for the people of Pacific Palisades is that you, unfortunately, there's not time yet for you to come home. It's not safe yet. It's not. And I can tell you just from an observational fact, it really is not. This is not just playing it safe. There is too much going on now. There are still fires. There's still spot fires up and down Sunset Boulevard, dangerous fires. There's still power lines that are down. And this is no area for anyone to return home to, because right now they have just too much work to do. And that work will continue. And you can expect tomorrow that curfew will begin officially from sundown to sun up. And again, if you need to come in tomorrow to get whatever you need out of your home, make sure that it has to do with a medical purpose. You will need to show ID, and that's not going to happen until the sunrise tomorrow. That's the very latest from this part of Sunset Boulevard. We're going to head back up and see what we can find for you there, and we will continue to keep you posted on the efforts of law enforcement and the members and the different fire agencies that we've seen, including our friends from San Bruno Fire Department, who are continuing to try and put this all to an end.
All right, Robert Grabosic live for us there, and we now want to turn our attention to Eliana Moreno. She's live for us over the Palisades Fire, News Chopper 4. Eliana?
And we continue to watch these flames, Michael. They're still pretty intense, and you can see that they're not actually that far from homes. That's a home there on the bottom of the screen. Let me throw in the doubler super quick, but you'll be able to see that one roof line. That's a home. And those, what I like to call tiki torches, all those palm trees, they go up so quickly. But at this point, because of the way the winds are blowing, it's blowing away from that home. But nonetheless, if I was the resident of that house, I would be pretty worried considering how close those flames appear on the backside. But again, at this point, because of the winds heading in a northerly direction, it is moving away from these homes and into the Santa Monica Mountains, where there really aren't any structures. Of course, we do have animals, and that's sad in and of itself, but there aren't any structures in the direction that these flames are going. Now, we do see a lot of embers, though. If you look very carefully, you're going to see all those little tiny embers kind of floating up into the wind. They should go with the wind and go to the north, but that doesn't mean that you can't get a straggler that could head in another direction and then possibly head towards these homes. But of course, we're crossing our fingers. Firefighters are out here. They've got multiple helicopters on this. We won't see any fixed wing because it's simply too dark for them to fly at this time of night. But we do see multiple water-dropping helicopters still continuing their efforts to put as much water as possible on the fire. But besides this large plume that we see here, of course, we do have tiny spot fires here and there, as Robert was mentioning in his report, all up and down Sunset Boulevard in the city. But then up here in the Santa Monica Mountains, just beyond that one area of fire that I was showing you, we do have another area of fire. It's a little bit more difficult for us to see from the south side of the fire, but we do see that better when we're on the San Fernando Valley side of the fire. And that's that fire that we were looking at before, that was at the top of the ridge just above Tarzana. Of course, there was a concern that if the winds shifted, it could make its way down the hill, which isn't easy for fires to make their way downhill. It's a lot easier uphill, about 16 times faster. So the chances that it would go down into the San Fernando Valley and into Tarzana are very, very slim. At this point, it looks like the fire will be contained to the Santa Monica Mountains, where, again, there are no structures, but we do see structures nearby in Pacific Palisades that have not burned and hopefully will not burn.
Yeah, even though it's sort of a distance away, you see the outline of that house there. Again, just the being within proximity of fire and smoke, of course, is a trigger for these homeowners. David, you look at this here now, and your first thoughts.
Well, it's still so actively burning. That's the interesting thing. And you know, from Eliana's shot, you can see sometimes the flames just really rope out really long. Sometimes our flame lengths, usually we estimate they're about 2 to 4 times the height of the brush. So that's looking at some of those flame lengths, telling me that this is burning through some pretty thick vegetation right now, probably 2 or 3 feet of vegetation. And this is probably at this point a combination of light and medium fuels. So it's the kind of stuff that's going to smolder for a little bit, those medium fuels. So yeah, that's why you kind of see it glowing even away from where the fire is already burning.
All right, David Biggar, thank you. It's 10 o'clock. We are continuing our coverage of the Southern California wildfire emergency live on air, nonstop since Tuesday morning. Good evening once again, everyone. I'm Coleen Williams.
And I'm Michael Bradley. Here's where the 3 largest fires stand right now. The Kenneth fire started near West Hills at about 2:30 this afternoon. That has burned more than 900 acres. It's 35% contained, and forward progress has been stopped. Investigators are looking into whether this fire was intentionally set.
Meantime, in Altadena, the Eaton fire has burned more than 13,000 acres so far. This one is 0% contained. One firefighter was injured, taken to the hospital there. Evacuation orders are still in effect for much of the area. The National Guard has been deployed now to help with the Eaton fire and the Palisades fire.
In the Palisades, just under 20,000 acres have burned with 6% containment. That's new information. More than 5,000 buildings have been destroyed in the Pacific Palisades and Malibu areas. And we now know there have been 10 fire-related deaths across LA County, though we're still waiting to find out how many are associated with each particular fire. We begin our live team coverage here tonight with meteorologist David Biggar.
Yeah, so we were talking about how many structures are involved with this, and earlier and yesterday and the past couple of days we've been comparing it to Oakland Hills in 1991. We've been comparing it to other fires as well. I have put together a list of some of the top 5 most destructive fires within California history, and you can see what I was talking about earlier with Michael and Kathy. So number 3 on the list right now, officially, is the Tunnel Fire. That's the Oakland Hills firestorm from 1991 with 2,900 structures. Would not be surprised if we're going to end up somewhere probably in this range. Maybe not at the campfire level. That was horrific as it burned through the town of Paradise. But still, we're probably going to end up somewhere in here now on this list. So here's what we're looking at right now with a live look from satellite. This is what we've been showing you a couple of nights now. This is what we call fire temperature. The brighter these pixels are, the more intense the fire is burning. And even though this is still burning, this is not nearly as intense looking as it's been over the past couple of nights. And actually, the Eden fire looks like it is laid down just a little bit, which we typically will see with some fires as we go through the overnight hours. But here's a look at the current gusts outside, because we are still seeing some pretty impressive gusts. A reminder, Santa Ana winds are still happening across the region right now. 53-mile-per-hour wind gusts right now around Ontario. South of Cohen past our IE wind tunnel. You see some of this pink coloring here. That's wind gusts in the 50 to 60-mile-per-hour range. Santa Ana looking at 21-mile-per-hour gusts around Thousand Oaks and Oxnard. We're still seeing some pretty good gusts right now. And across the Ventura County mountains, we're seeing some of that orange coloring, an indication of wind gusts in the 30 to 40-mile-per-hour range. So as we get a little bit closer, a little more granular here, and we take a look at the Palisades fire, what you'll notice is that the lower elevations really don't have all that much in the way of wind, and that's a good benefit. And actually, the other big benefit is that the humidity has come up. It's been kind of bouncing around a little bit. We got as high as 60% around Santa Monica. Now we're back down to the 40s, but that's a huge recovery when you compare it to the mountain sites where we're still around the teens right now. We've got 11% humidity for Malibu Creek, 14% for the Santa Monica Mountains Ridgetop site with a wind speed of 20 miles an hour, gusting up to 30. So it's a reminder, the Santa Ana winds are still blowing right now. That's why fire danger is still very high across the entire region. But it does look like the area that Eliana was showing was right in here. This is a lot of wilderness area in here, and it's likely fires climbing up to the ridgetop and then getting folded back on itself by that northerly wind. If it was a wind in the other direction, that would be a different story. Let's show you what the Eden Fire latest looks like. Right now, all the winds are still relatively light. That has been the story for much of the day today, and that's been a huge benefit. However, it is still very dry, looking at about 15% humidity pretty much for all of our observation sites in the area. And most of the activity for the Eden Fire has been across the San Gabriel Mountains today, burning up toward Mount Wilson. So that is where it's gustier, is up in the mountain areas, while the lower elevations are still pretty wind sheltered, since we're looking at, as weird as it is to say, kind of a regular, typical Santa Ana wind event right now. And finally, I wanted to cover the Kenneth Fire as well. So this fire started in this area here near West Hills and then burned across the open space. This is Malibu Canyon Apartments in the Malibu Canyon community. It looks like it has managed to avoid that, but around the area, we are still seeing some pretty decent gusts right now. 34-mile-per-hour gusts are in our canyon observation sites. Lost Hill Road, looking at wind gusts in about the 20-mile-per-hour range. And even though we had light winds not too long ago for Calabasas, it has gotten gusty again. And the key thing here, very similar to our ridgetop observation sites around the Santa Monica Mountains, it is still very dry. We're only looking at about humidity from 10 to 15%. So that's the interesting thing with the overnight recovery, and Melissa has mentioned this. We get some of the moisture coming back in from the ocean that increases the humidity. Well, we're kind of back to what we see when we get our onshore wind at the end of the day. And that means that the humidity is going to be going up in places with proximity to the coastline. San Fernando Valley, all these communities around Ventura County, this is on the other side of the mountains from the ocean. We're probably not going to get any recovery here in humidity until the winds come to a stop and we get the onshore breeze for tomorrow, which it does look like is going to happen before the wind calms down tomorrow night. And then it potentially looks like we might get another round of wind coming our way as we get into Saturday night and then Sunday. And then, of course, we're also looking in the forecast the potential for some more strong winds coming our way as we get into the Monday, Tuesday timeframe of next week. So we got a lot that we're going to keep track of for everybody over the next couple of days.
All right, but let's put some context behind those Santa Ana winds come Monday, not as strong as we saw earlier this week.
So that's what it currently looks like, but I want to hedge that a little bit because it's a similar pattern to what we had, but it looks like it would be different areas and maybe not as intense. So that's the part that we're still trying to work out, because the area of low pressure responsible for it, this is the game with meteorology, by the way, with everything that we do. If it shifts slightly one way or another, that could have a huge impact on how much wind we see. That means we're looking at stronger winds, weaker winds, maybe the onset of the wind is different. And so that's the part that we're still kind of wrapping our head around right now, trying to figure out. And obviously, at the same time, trying to keep track of the winds that are happening outside.
All right, David, Biggar, as always, appreciate it. Thank you.
A lot of people praying for those weaker winds out there.
Same.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit right now about the Eden Fire. That one has burned 13,700 acres so far. This is the one with 0% containment.
Server Linda Jones from our station in the Bay Area is live in Altadena with an update on the Eden Fire.
Well, Michael and Coleen, we are at one of those road closures ahead of those evacuations and where everyone has been evacuated here on New York Drive and Holliston Avenue. And I want to show you these road closures because every couple of streets that you go past, you see these road closures, you see law enforcement here present, and that's because they have had issues with looters here. Even here tonight, I spoke to one LA County Sheriff's deputy at one of the road closures, and he says just within the past couple of hours, they have seen around 10 looters. And so this is not, we're not talking about a whole day, we're talking about just in a matter of a couple of hours. So this is a real concern here tonight. They have law enforcement spread throughout the area to make sure people do not go in those road closures to prevent anyone from taking advantage of the situation. Here on this side of New York Drive is where there's evacuation warnings. We are not seeing a lot of people milling around. We're seeing a lot of people gone from this area as well. Tonight, you can still smell the smoke. Just a couple minutes ago, we saw that orange glow over the mountain there, over the ridge where that fire is burning, still burning heavily tonight. But really tonight, law enforcement is concerned about looters in the area. Again, 10 just within the past couple of hours. So they're keeping an eye on that. We do know the National Guard is on their way. Again, I talked to deputies just a few moments ago, and they say They have not made their way here just yet, so they are waiting for that help as well. But for now, they're keeping an eye on the community, making sure that no one comes into that evacuated area to make sure that that area is protected. And you know, it's quiet here tonight, even in the evacuation warning areas. You're not seeing lights in homes. You're not seeing people walking around, milling around. So a lot of people are gone from this community. Obviously, a lot of heartbreak here in this community tonight. So law enforcement making sure that no one takes advantage of that.
Well, we do know the National Guard is on the way. We watched them deploy from the Ontario area, two and a half hours ago. So they should be somewhere in the Pasadena-Altadena area, probably just waiting for orders at this point to get out there and assignments. Alina Jones, we appreciate your... you were covering the Kenneth fire just a couple of hours ago. You've moved down the road to the Eaton fire again?
Yes. So we're over here just about an hour ago. We were over at the Kenneth fire, and so I'm moving around, seeing where the need is tonight.
All right, Alina Jones, we appreciate your help. Thank you. And, you know, we've heard from city and county officials, Coleen, about the issue of looting. And I think Catherine Barger yesterday said that you will feel the full weight of the law if you decide to do that. So
we heard it from her. We've heard it from the Sheriff's Department, LAPD, and then we also heard it from Nathan Hochman, who is the new LA County prosecutor. He says he will prosecute to the full extent of the law on that. All right, we have Roberto Ruiz now live from our family of NBC and Telemundo stations. He's live at the Pasadena Convention Center where evacuees are staying, and others are just stopping by to deliver some supplies. Roberto.
Hello, yeah, it's very quiet here. There's not that many people here. Everybody has left. There's even the tons of volunteers that were here early on have decided to leave home. It's been a couple of minutes that we haven't seen any people coming in these doors. But that wasn't the situation a couple of hours ago where we saw hundreds of people with their children, with their pets coming in here seeking for help and resources. The last statement, we did get confirmation from authorities stating that there's over 500 people in this shelter. From those 500, there's 100 children in this shelter. We're going to ask, hopefully we're going to have these images in our last live transmission, live shot, I'm sorry. We were able to capture this moment where there was two individuals that were taken out from the convention center into an ambulance. We did try to ask some more information about what was going on, obviously because of HIPAA law, that those details were not provided to us. But that is something that we were able to capture in the last couple of minutes. I would like to also show here on my left side, this area here has been closed down, and that's where we see, let's say there is an ambulance, an emergency, that's where they have covered up for these vehicles to pass through here. We're also told that they're not accepting any donations at this time. That will be reopening tomorrow around 8 in the morning. Reporting live from Pasadena, Roberto Ruiz, going back to you guys to the studio.
All right, Roberto, thank you. You know, we talk about it being quiet there, but many of the people were there, and we know they've seen thousands of people since they first opened on Tuesday. Many of the people have no place else to go. They are bedded down for the night in there. You know, they're providing services for them, meals every day, hygiene packages, counseling in many cases, and this is a temporary home for so many of those folks.
And as Roberto mentioned, at least 100 children.
Yeah.
All right, one of the main things we are seeing right now with these fires, people wanting to know how they can help anyone affected or in need.
Our Camilla Rambaldi is in the newsroom with a few of those resources. Here's a list.
I'm Camilla Rambaldi. We wanted to let you know that we have put together a list of resources for all of you impacted by the wildfires. It includes a list of all the shelters that are available to free transportation options. For those who had to evacuate, you can get a credit from Uber to an evacuation site. The $40 will only be valid for trips to an active shelter and by using the code Wildfire25. Lyft also says it's offering $25 vouchers. They are valid for 2 trips to 500 customers from now until midnight on January 15th. And now to housing. There are a number of different options and discounts that you can find. 211 LA is partnering with Airbnb to offer free temporary housing for people displaced from their homes due to the wildfires. The Queen Mary Hotel in Long Beach also announced that it will be pricing rooms for fire evacuees at $189. We have also put a list for you of all the evacuation shelters and animal shelters that are open. Now to pet care and food. Vetster is offering free telehealth appointments to pets impacted by the fires. All you have to do is visit their website to get a free appointment. For food, there are a number of businesses stepping in to help and offer discounts for first responders in the Los Angeles area. First responders are invited to stop by Joe's Pizza at any location for free pizza. All Shake Shack locations are also offering a free Shack burger for first responders through January 12th. Norms is also treating first responders and firefighters to free meals. To learn more about the list of resources, make sure to head to our website, NBCLA.com. In the newsroom, Camilla Rambaldi, NBC4 News.
All right, once again, you're looking at a live picture from News Chopper 4, Ileana Marino overhead. This really gives you an idea of what's going on in the Palisades right now. Ileana?
Este incendio que estamos viendo, y perdóname porque no pude escuchar.
Okay, yeah, so this is a live shot from News Chopper 4, giving us the perspective here of a fire here in the Pacific Palisades. This is the same shot I believe Eliana showed us not too long ago. The good news here, it's actually burning away from homes.
And by the way, that was Ileana Marino. She's also doing a live report for our sister station, Telemundo 52. And so she'll be back with us in just a couple of minutes. But very talented, very versatile. She does reports for both of us. Meantime, NBC4's Robert Kovacic has been covering the Palisades fire all week long. In fact, we've seen Robert on several fires this week.
That's right. Earlier tonight, he brought the community some hopeful news.
We're going to give you some breaking news right now, and if there is any reason to smile here in the Pacific Palisades, this may be one bright spot. What these gentlemen are telling me is the cornerstone, the bedrock of this community, the American Legion Post 283, which has some 700 members that Ronald Reagan himself was a member of, has survived this fire. It is still standing. And according to Commander Jim Craig, who is joining us right now live, it is going to serve a purpose in the recovery efforts. Commander.
Yes, sir. We are veterans. We served our country. It's time for us to continue to serve our community. Our building is the only building that survived that is a community building. The churches are gone. The schools are gone. Across the road from us, there's 4 burned out schools. My daughter's school is gone. We are the only entity that can be a community center. So we want to be standing ready. That's why we just came up to assess the damage. Our building is ready to go, and we want the city of Los Angeles to know they can bring their services up and utilize our facility. But most important, we want our community mates, the people of the Palisades who are crying out. We want them to know that we're here for them, that we have a place for them, and we're there to get the rebuilding started as soon as the city wants to give us a go sign.
This is an embrace for help offered by one of the largest American Legion posts in the country. You were telling me we have veterans ready and willing to assist in the recovery effort. You yourself, Commander, are a resident of the Pacific Palisades. You were telling me that your home did survive. How did you manage to do that?
I was able to, after the last brush fires that got close to us a couple years ago, I bought these cheap sprinklers, the ones that wave back and forth, and bought hoses, had them ready, popped them up on my roof, turned them on. I sprayed down a fire retardant on the side of my house, and I left. Got out with my family. I got trapped by the flames going down Sunset. it was difficult. It was like Afghanistan type difficult. But what happened is, because I had those sprinklers up there, the flames came down the hill, and you could see from where the sprinklers arced in the backyard that the flames came right up to that water and stopped. And below me are about 14 houses, my neighbors, who I've been able to tell them their houses are still there. And you can see where the flames went up the hill, and along Lockman, I was just up, and it's devastating. All my neighbors up across the top, their houses are gone. And then to my right, there 2 houses got caught. And the reason I came back today is that the power's turned off for the water. And so I brought my associate Jason, who's a Marine, brought him up, and we spent about 3 hours going to the pool, buckets, dumping water on the roof and on the sides, and because not just to save my house, but it's my neighbor's house beneath me, and yeah, it just had to do it. I had to be up there. And the people, they're contacting me, begging me to check on their houses. And everyone up here is doing a great job. I've been talking with LAPD, LA Fighter. They're doing everything they can, but it's a war zone.
And I want to ask you about that. And bear with me, Jim. I mean, you know, for this man to be reduced to tears, and I know Colleen's going to ask you, so I'm going to ask you first. Can you tell us, and I know you don't really want to talk about it, a little bit about your military experience?
I did 30 years Army Special Operations. I was an officer. I was qualified as a medic, and I was also a survival instructor. So this is the ideal situation for me, but the worst situation. I'm used to this overseas. 30 years, I've been all around the world. I've seen what the world has to offer in its worst case, but my neighbors are not ready for this. My family's not ready for this. My 10-year-old daughter asking me, where am I going to go to school, Daddy? At first she thought, oh great, the school's shut down, and then she has no idea. There's nothing. Every place where she grew up here is gone, and our house, I'm thrilled that our house is standing. We have something to come back to. But this is a devastated neighborhood. But again, that's why we in the Legion, you know, we're outfitted for this. We're Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, veterans who've been through what the world has to offer, and we're going to help this community rebuild. And we've got that training and experience.
What the commander said to me before, Coleen and Kathy, which just sort of gutted me, was, You've been to the war-torn areas. You've been to places that you've seen devastated. You've been to the Afghanistans and the Iraqs, and you've seen it. And I asked you, and you said, and now this. And I said, how is this comparable? And you said, they were ready.
Yes. We were prepared to go to war.
How can one of the most desirable, enviable zip codes in the entire nation and the entire world be prepared for this? And is this comparable, what you're seeing? We use these words like war zone. Is it fair to apply that to what you're witnessing here as people get ready to come back in?
When you talk battle damage assessment in a war zone, and you look at what's going on here, I just stood with my friend on his yard, and his house is still there. He had sprinklers on his roof too, and we looked out at probably 60 burned out hulks and a public school that looked like it had been carpet bombed. I have not seen anything like this. I don't know how civilians are going to engage. We're here for them, but no, this is nothing that the average American is ready for.
Were you ready for it when you saw it, Commander?
No. This is where my kid plays. This is where I taught her to play basketball, and it's the memories are gutted. I mean, you literally, the ground is smoking. This is, it's not just, things are not there anymore. It's things are replaced by ash and smoke and twisted steel right behind us. That times 1,000. And I climbed the hill and you can look out and you can feel great for the people whose houses have made it. but it's killing me. And when people come back, I don't know how they're going to take it.
You were telling me before, Commander, that your wife is works with people with mental health.
Yes.
How do you explain to your 10-year-old daughter? How would you recommend people go about it? Because when they get here, Coleen and Kathy, I don't know if anyone's prepared, because we drive in every day and we're not prepared. How do you prepare them for what's in store?
You don't, but you talk, you communicate, you let them know the reality, because if you don't let them know the reality, when they step out here, adults are reduced to tears. The kids need to see the pictures. I hate to say it, I saw the kids in Afghanistan seeing the dead bodies, what they've endured. These kids are going to be able to, resilience is key word, they will be resilient, but they need to be exposed. One of my guys came in today and I was guiding him in on the phone. He's an Army major, and he pulled up in front of the burning mess of what was his house. And the tone in our voices, it's flooring. It's flooring. For those who are coming back, I don't know what to say to you, except that's why we feel as vets we want to be here, because I think we can absorb a lot, and they can't.
And that is why, again, it is really a bright spot, not only a bright spot that we have people like Commander Jim Craig who are going to help the people of the Pacific Palisades, his neighbors, get through this, but also that we have the American Legion post. We drove by it, we saw it. It is standing, it is a beacon, and these veterans are there to help. Coleen, I know that, this is something that impacts you quite a bit, hearing from the commander himself. I'm curious to know your thoughts as to what Jim is saying, and if you two have anything you'd like to say to him. Coleen wants to know and why I'm calling you Commander.
I'm actually the junior past commander of our Legion post. I was a lieutenant colonel in the Army, and but here my role is as the past commander of our Legion post.
I sit next to this woman at work, and trust me, when it comes to military, you cannot get anything past Coleen. So I was going to warn you about this before, but Coleen, you understand why. This is really, when you talk about the community coming together, just to know that Jim, Jason are going to be here for this community, because it's not only they feel it's their duty, but it's also because these are their fellow residents. You sort of begin to think there is going to be a future in the Pacific Palisades, and we have to get past what is so very bleak and look to something positive. And this really tonight is the first time that I can remember something to be so positive, as devastating as it is, and as you said so aptly, that the ground is still smoking around us.
We're bred for leadership.
Yes, Coleen is talking to me in my ear, and I know she's going to want to say something. Yes, Coleen. Good. I like this. Coleen is wondering, with the American Legion post, again, we're talking about one of the largest in the country. It's been around since 1927, right, Jason? Yeah. 1927. What do you envision there? Do you think that, Colleen's wondering, do you think that this could be where classes are held once again? I mean, you talk about offering it as the command center and the command post, but as we start to rebuild, what could this mean for the community in terms of its physical location and the building itself?
We're military, so we try to plan things out. We plan everything. So for stage one, we're trying to get drones up. We're trying to be put up on our Facebook page pictures of people's houses, because that's the first thing right now.
That's what everybody asks.
Yes, yeah. You have to know, do I go sign a lease somewhere, or is my house still there? So we're trying, stage one is help people find out their location. Stage number two was to get with LA City and offer our space for their services. And then stage three is to open the doors to those services. If they have insurance adjusters that need a place to meet, if the city needs to offer counseling services, mental health services, we want to have a place that people can go to. We're trying to organize potential insurance counselors. So right now we're trying to find out what the city doesn't have, and we're inviting the city to come to us. And if the city doesn't have certain assets, we're trying to work with Legion National, Legion, our state, California, to see what kind of assets we can bring in, also to supplement whatever the city may be lacking. There are a lot of fires going on, so what we can do here, we're ready to step up.
Hey, Jim, is it fair to share that Facebook page with our viewers so they could go and look to this?
I believe it's Ronald Reagan Palisades Post 283 at Facebook.
I'll have Coleen and Kathy look that up for us. But so that is where you're trying to fly drones to go over properties to see what is still not standing here, trying to help out your neighbors, because people can't get in to find out.
Roger. And people are literally spending hours a day just going on Nextdoor app, trying to see what pictures people are posting. My phone blows up because I keep posting pictures, and people are saying, hey, can you get is the house to the right of that picture still there? So we're trying to engage that challenge right now.
This is really practical help that you all are trying to offer people, because it's the desperation to get back into this community right now.
When you go to war, you learn what's practical and what's first to go, and so we're trying to tackle that, and so whatever we can do to assist those folks. Again, we're not trying to get in the way of the city or the county. They're doing a great job, but we're just trying to do what we can, because we're not a search and rescue entity, but we'll do whatever we can to back the municipal assets.
And as you heard from Commander Jim Craig here, Coleen and Kathy, it's no exaggeration when he talks about what we are seeing right now here in the Pacific Palisades. It's hard to compare them, but you can compare the Pacific Palisades to some of the worst war-torn regions that Jim has experienced.
I've never seen anything like it. I mean, I have not. I've been to Afghanistan. I've been to 76 countries. I've seen refugee camps. I've seen genocide. This is wave after wave of burned out house, families, everything a family has torched and gone. And it's something we need to engage. We need to engage as a community. We need to be as positive as we can, and leaders need to step up. And our city councilwoman's doing a great job. Our mayor's doing a great job. We do think that their leadership is awesome, but we as locals who are here, we are boots on the ground. We're here and we're ready.
A beacon of optimism, no doubt.
Yeah, you could hear the emotion in his voice, but you can also hear the determination.
Yeah.
This will get done. This is a guy who thinks outside the box. And as we heard from city leaders earlier today, that's really what we need in Southern California to move forward and to recover from this.
Many more people like him. All right. Thanks, Robert. All right, well, the California National Guard is in the LA area here tonight to help support local law enforcement during these fires. In fact, Governor Newsom posted this picture tonight on his X account.
Earlier tonight, we were in Ontario as they started to deploy. This may have been 2.5 hours ago. This is the California Army National Guard in the Ontario area. You see the Humvees and the troop carriers pulling out there. And we know in that amount of time, 2.5 hours, they have made it to where they need to be. That area we understand right now is Glendale. That's where they've set up a command post of sorts. Ileana Marino over the scene right now in News Chopper 4. Ileana.
Coleen, and they're staging at the CHP office located right at the interchange of the 134 and 2 freeways. I'll widen out the shot real quick so you can see where that's at. I know a lot of us who normally take these freeways will be very familiar with that building there that you see in the center of the screen with that large communication tower. It's in that parking lot that we have located the National Guard, and there's several vehicles. We see a couple dozen service members as well. And what I do notice is that it appears that they're still getting their marching orders, essentially. So it looks like they were kind of being directed as to what their official duties will be when they do get to the fire zones. Considering that we are closest to the Eaton fire, since we are in Glendale, so we're really just a couple miles away from the Eaton fire, I can only assume that this group of personnel are going to be making their way to that fire. What their official duties will be while they're there, that is still unknown to us. And again, it seems like they're getting their directions now as to what they are to do once they arrive on scene. Again, right at the CHP station here off of the 134 and 2 in Glendale. This is their command post. Again, this was their meetup spot after they got here from Ontario. And from here, they will be heading off to the Eaton fire. From here, likely going to be taking the northbound 2 freeway to get to the fire zone, to assist with whatever it is that the firefighters need out there, as well as possibly helping with traffic control and whatever it is that the citizens need that have been affected by these terrible fires.
Yeah, in addition to being staged there at the Eaton fire, Eliana, we're also being told they'll be staged at the Palisades fire as well. And the request went out earlier today by LA County Sheriff Luna, and again, the governor signed off on it. 400 National Guardsmen, that was the request. And again, we are told they are staged and ready to go. The first missions, the Palisades and Eaton fire, as I mentioned, there have been requests from the city of Los Angeles as well, Arcadia and Pasadena. And again, to assist with things like calling traffic control, infrastructure protection, and checkpoint entries.
Yeah, we have an idea of exactly what they'll be doing. You know, so many areas are still covered by mandatory evacuation orders or voluntary evacuation orders. And so, you know, the concern has been with looters and people being in the area who don't belong there. And so what they'll be doing, Michael, as you pointed out, is they'll be staging at checkpoints. They'll be checking ID cards. They'll be checking names and addresses to make sure if you say you belong in that neighborhood, you do. So right. As we heard earlier, you know, that has become, I won't say a significant problem, but one of the main concerns here for officials is that the people who've been victimized by these fires are not victimized a second time when they come home, either if they've lost their home or they've been away because they've been evacuated, they've been robbed as well. Aligning
with what you just said here, as we've been told tonight, the county is in the process of drafting curfew paperwork. And, you know, the goal was to get it up and running here tonight, but I think they're now forecasting for this to begin tomorrow. And the curfew essentially is what they need, they say, in order to keep people out of these vulnerable areas. The National Guard will play a hefty role in that as well. That curfew apparently running from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. within these vulnerable areas. And we saw a little bit of how that's going to work earlier today when we talked to Robert Kovacic in the Palisades area. There were a line of cars, people trying to get into neighborhoods. You had to have an ID, you had to have an address, and you had to have a specific reason as to why you were going in that neighborhood. Many people said they needed to go back in for prescriptions or specific things. They were not letting people go back in just to remove items or to look around to see if their homes had made it through the fire. So that's exactly what the National Guard, the California Army National Guard, will be tasked with, doing some of those things, supporting law enforcement, supporting fire authorities so they can go about the business of doing what they need to do. Right. Again, taking over for law enforcement who are currently handling these duties, as Coleen says, so they can be freed up to take care of things in and around the city and county of Los Angeles. And there we see right now from News Chopper 4, a live picture right now, they will be staging or basing out of the CHP area just off the 2 and the 134. So we'll keep track of all of that and bring you more as we see it. In the meantime, our Macy Jenkins is joining us live in Altadena right now at Lake and Alameda. Macy.
Well, Colleen, we've been driving around all evening just looking at some of the images of devastation, and I have to show you this. This is something that we're all used to seeing, a gas station. This Chevron station, something that we know what it's supposed to look like, it just shows you the erratic nature of this fire. It's just been torn apart after the fire swept through here on Tuesday. And, you know, for some reason, it just really caught my eye, as there are many things that you cannot see in the dark here. There are little fires that we've seen, hot spots still going, but this gas station just in pieces, and a car is still left in the garage from the repair shop. Now, because this fire was so unpredictable, and I cannot show you this because it is dark, but I will describe it to you. In the last few blocks, I would say the last 2 blocks, you have destruction that has been selective. We saw an Aldi and a Dollar Tree partially destroyed. Chase Bank, though, still standing right across the street. Jack in the Box, untouched. And then you have this Chevron station, of course, decimated by the fire. Take a look at this video from a little bit earlier, about an hour and a half ago. This shows a firefighter working at a library that was destroyed, but there were hot spots still going, and he was part of a crew that was going door to door, street to street, looking for gas lines to shut off. One of the engineers, we spoke to him, Jose Zavala, he says that their mission is to make sure that each of the streets that they went to was not lit up by fire, and if there was no gas line, if there was a gas line fueling that fire, they wanted to cut it off. Take a listen.
Right now, my crew, we're on Patrol 66, coming out of Station 66 from Eden Canyon. We're on a tactical patrol looking for hotspots throughout the entire area so that we don't have ember casts that get thrown downwind once again like what happened earlier.
Yeah. I see that you guys are doing a couple of different things. Describe what you're doing when you go to each location.
Different locations. Some locations, unfortunately, the gas meters have exploded and have gas fires going throughout the residences. So we're looking for the gas meters, attempting to shut those off. Once those are shut off, we're moving house to house, location to location, looking for other hotspots. As you can see here, we had a hotspot here burning embers. So we're trying to control that, and then after this commercial structure, we're going to move on to the next.
Now take a look here on the corner. You see these law enforcement vehicles. They are placed strategically all along Lake Avenue and throughout the Altadena area. Those are checkpoints because they want to make sure that people who do not belong here, who are taking advantage of a disaster situation and possibly looting, they want to make sure that those people are taken out of this area. We know that there have been at least 20 arrests, 18 of them here in Altadena, those 20 arrests for looting. We also saw, as Coleen was mentioning earlier, the California National Guard has been deployed. They were in Ontario a few hours ago. We've learned that they are on their way to Altadena. We've heard that they have not yet gotten here. That was the latest information we got about 30 minutes ago, but we are on the lookout for them. Their goal is to try to secure this area. Again, look out for looters, keep the area secure. And of course, you know, this is more than just making sure that people's properties are safe, but making sure that people are safe and that they don't get in the way of first responders. That is their main priority, is to get those hotspots out. There are still live power lines. We did see SoCal Gas working on one of the streets. So there are many different people and organizations who are here, and they're trying to do their job, and they don't want anyone, they don't need anyone getting in their way. I'll send it back to you.
And you think about, Michael and Macy, the number of people deployed to this and the vast areas they have to cover. I mean, I think about the Altadena area alone, how many streets are damaged and how many checkpoints they have to set up at this point. And they're doing the same exact thing when they go to the Palisades there. I mean, we're talking about such a vast area.
Right.
What is it, 13, almost 14,000 acres burned in Pasadena and Altadena, and 20,000 in the Palisades.
I mean, the scope, Coleen, is so large, and this is likely why we keep seeing some of these police officers, some of these law enforcement vehicles move and reposition, because we were here about 20 minutes ago, there wasn't an officer. They were a few blocks down. So I think what they're doing is saying, okay, where are the access points? You know, they have to surround the areas that were impacted by the fire. Because if you go just a few blocks north, you will not see buildings damaged by the fire where we are standing. So they have to make sure they can figure out where the fire impacted, which areas were evacuated, and where people still have not been allowed to come back home.
Yeah, Coleen, as you mentioned, a large area, perhaps they're going to be forced to hopscotch around in order to keep, you know, as many places safe as possible.
Well, you look, law enforcement is doing that now.
Yeah.
I see what the firefighters doing. The word that comes to mind is triage. You know, they put out the fires. Now they seem to have to circle back to make sure there are no hot spots. So the National Guard coming in here will free up law enforcement and firefighters to do their primary jobs.
All right, every little bit helps. All right, well, we wanted you to take a look at this here. Video of empty shelves as air purifiers sell out at a local Target store. Though those purifiers are in huge demand right now, obviously because of the poor air quality brought on by all the smoke from the fires. So let's check it now with meteorologist Melissa McGee, and there's not a very happy baby on that video.
Yeah, baby's crying.
Right
I bet they're selling out of masks, too. I mean, if you think about after COVID, a lot of people just abandoned their masks, got rid of them.
Yeah. Right.
And of course, you really almost need a different kind of mask.
We're all kind of indirectly impacted as a result of the fires, even if the fires aren't burning in your community. When you step outside, if you're driving, if you're walking, you can kind of see the ash. Yeah. It feels like it's raining ash in some spots too. So that's a big concern because the air quality will remain poor. Widespread air quality will be poor across much of our region. So we've got a wildfire smoke advisory. The fires are burning in LA County right now. Out across areas in Eaton with the Eaton fire, the Palisades fire, the Hearst fire. We're all tracking that, and the Kenneth fire as well. But the smoke even extending back across areas in Orange County, the Inland Empire, and Ontario. You are also underneath a wildfire smoke advisory. Here's the current look at the air quality across our region, and look at the red here, the red, and then watch the scale. That's an indication of air being unhealthy for everyone in Burbank all the way down to Los Angeles. The orange here extends out from the red, so that's up across areas in the San Fernando Valley, and just to the north of Long Beach, that's an indication of the air being unhealthy for sensitive groups. So if you're in that category, that's the young, the elderly. If you're suffering from respiratory illnesses, you really need to monitor your time outdoors. I want to show you the smoke futurecast as we head into our Friday here during the overnight hours. And if you watch the legend here, the darker the shades of gray, that's an indication of the thicker plumes of smoke in the air. So we've got that smoke moving down across areas in the basin. And then watch what happens with the wind direction as we get into our Friday morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. The smoke will start to spread in across areas in Orange County and the Inland Empire, and that's also indicative of the wind shifting as we go throughout the day tomorrow. We've been dealing with a stiff northeasterly wind, which has mainly been focusing that smoke out across areas from the north and east straight down to the south and west. As the winds switch around as we get into our Friday afternoon from a westerly direction, that smoke will move back to the east. And then look at this by Friday evening. We've got plumes and pockets of heavy smoke, not just for LA County, back across areas in Orange County, the Inland Empire, and San Bernardino County as well. So just some reminders for you and some fire safety tips as well. If you see the smoke or the ash, remain indoors, close your windows, avoid any strenuous activity outside at this point, and especially with the fires burning in your neighborhood, probably not a good situation to do so anyway, because once you spend an extended period of time outdoors, it's an issue in terms of inhaling all of that toxicity in the atmosphere. It's a lot of soot. It's a lot of particulate matter as well. If you have to go outside, keep a brief. And like Coleen and Michael and I have been saying, use one of those masks. The issue in the short term, it's all about the winds. Look at this. The winds are really starting to ramp up across areas in Orange County and the Inland Empire. We've been focusing a lot on LA County because that's where all of the fires are currently burning here, but it's still an issue out across communities in Orange County and the Inland Empire. A gust up to 53 miles per hour in Ontario, 25 miles per hour in Riverside, and 40 there in San Bernardino. And the wind certainly having an impact on where these flames travel. Here's the good news tonight for the Palisades. Relative humidity really starting to increase across areas in Santa Monica. We're up to 43%, so there's more moisture in the atmosphere. The concern tonight will be out for the Santa Monica Mountains, with winds gusting up to 32 at this moment, but it's very possible overnight into our Friday we'll have those winds gusting anywhere from 50 to 65 miles per hour. Santa Monica Mountains are underneath a high wind warning right through our Friday. Calm conditions right now with the Eaton fire here, but the humidity is still very dry. Aside from the basin and close to the water, we're starting to pick up more moisture, more humidity in the atmosphere. It's still bone dry off to our north and off to our north and west. And unfortunately, as we head into our weekend, we're not necessarily done with the Santa Anas. There's another round moving on in as we get into Saturday night into our Sunday. Ridge of high pressure out in the Pacific there, area of low pressure just to our east. We're sandwiched in between, so we track all of those winds from the north coming once again down across the south and east. So we're tracking this, and it's quite possible, even as we get into next week, Michael and Coleen, the potential of another Santa Ana wind event even after we go through our weekend. So we'll keep you posted and monitor it as we go throughout the rest of the night and into tomorrow, too. And the short term, though, for everybody, it's all about this air quality.
All right, Melissa, appreciate it. Thank you.
You got it.
Well, right now we have reporters from our NBC and Telemundo stations across the country helping us with our coverage.
Reporter Jorge de Santiago is live from the Red Cross in Westwood tonight with some of the efforts there to help people adjust to actually the new reality. Jorge.
Yeah, the Red Cross is working nonstop out here. They're trying to help every single person that crosses these doors here. Most of the people that are coming through here have very few items that they were able to take away from their home. With me is Ricardo Alterno, volunteer with the Red Cross. Ricardo, come and join me over here just a little. So talk to me about the operational efforts to make this place run smoothly.
Well, basically, at the moment when they say we have an emergency, we activate all the system with the Red Cross have. So we call the logistic department to tell them, hey, we're going to open a shelter in this place. We're going to get the trailers move in that direction. And at the same time, we send an email to all our volunteers to tell them, hey, we have this emergency running. We need you. Tell us how much time you have available. As soon as we have the answers for them, we start to send the people in different directions. The first shelter we opened was this one. This is the first one, but confirming the emergency and the fire going different ways, we have to open more shelters. We have already in place 7 shelters where we have people, the different communities, different areas, join that sections, to make sure we can provide a safety place, food, and everything what they need basically to stay at the moment when the emergency is controlled or is going to be under control with the fire department.
Ricardo, now I want you to talk to me and tell people what the people will be receiving here once they cross the doors through here. So let me step out of the way so you guys can get a better glimpse of what's right behind us. So what are people receiving as soon as they come through the doors here? Talk to us about that part.
Well, when they come to the shelter, basically they're going to have a place to stay. They have a bed, they have a blanket, they have a medical support, a mental support, and all the information what they need, showers, and the food what they need in the morning, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's what the Red Cross provide, and we're gonna stay here until the last person left, or when we can start to work case by case.
What's interesting here is that they're not only helping humans, but they're actually helping our four-legged friends. We've seen a ton of animals come through here. So talk to us about those efforts.
Yeah, they are allowed to bring his animals, small size, to this shelter because we have the facility to use another room when we have available for them, and they can bring it over here. Of course, we prefer you can bring the case, the food, the toys, what they like, to make sure they are comfortable because either the animals are under stress in these kind of situations.
Ricardo, thank you very much. So this is what's going on out here. Ricardo is one of the many volunteers from the Red Cross making this place run smoothly. Reporting live from Westwood, I'm Jorge de Santiago for NBC4 and Telemundo 52. Now back to you guys, Coleen and Michael in studio.
All right, appreciate it. Great work being done there, as well as what we're about to show you here live from News Chopper 4. The National Guard here is on the move, Coleen.
There you see there with the CHP escort, Ileana Marino, over the scene. Ileana, do they look like they're headed to the Palisades, or are they headed to the Altadena area at this point?
I believe at least this group, Coleen, is going to be headed to the Eaton fire just because of the general direction that they're going in. They just hopped on the 134, actually. They really did have the option of either the 2 or the 134. It'd be pretty much the same amount of driving, but it looks like they're favoring the 134 east. And we're going to be kind of limited in how far we can tag along with them, just because there still is a temporary flight restriction over the fire. The reason that is there is, of course, we do have firefighting aircraft that are overhead, so we have to stay clear of that. But we can follow them till they get to about the Eagle Rock, the rock itself, and Eagle Rock. So eastbound here on the 134, led by a couple of CHP units. We've got one to the rear and then one in the front. Several units here of the California National Guard making their way on the 134. The CHP didn't have to shut down the freeway for this because traffic in this area is generally light. In terms of most of our freeways today, we have in fact seen lighter traffic conditions overall. So a lot of people are heeding the warning of staying home. So it's a good thing. People staying off the road, allowing some of these first responders to get where they need to go, allowing evacuees to go where they need to go as well. And you'll notice it's very faint, but I can kind of see it as we're just kind of shooting along here. I can actually see embers flying through my shot. So some of that ash that we have seen from the fires all over our air here in the LA area. But again, the National Guard is making its way to the Eaton fire, but we know that there is at least a separate crew that's going to be heading to the Palisades fire. And their duties while there is going to be to assist with traffic control, to help at intersections where there's no power, to basically take some of the load off of some of our police personnel who have been out here for hours. LAPD went into a tactical alert as soon as the fires grew to the magnitude that they did, and that goes for many departments in terms of law enforcement and firefighters that really haven't had much of a break. They haven't had much sleep. They haven't had much food. So having the California National Guard come and assist will be just a huge help in any way that they're able to assist in all of our fires.
Kel, I see what, 2? Is it 2 units deploying here, or 3 or 4? It's hard to tell in the dark. Ileana?
Yeah, it's hard to tell in the dark, but they're all driving there in the slow lane. So I'm seeing at least what look like 4 National Guard vehicles, and then we've got a CHP unit in the lead, and we've got one in the rear helping them, of course, just navigate. But again, traffic is generally light, but they're sticking together here in the slow lane at speeds of about, they're actually not going very fast at all, looking at about speeds of about 40 miles an hour as they continue to make their way eastbound here on the 134. They're going to be at the 210 here in just a moment. And again, at least this group of California National Guard men and women are going to be heading to assist with the Eaton fire in Altadena. They're going to help again with things like traffic control, help wherever there's downed power lines, just any little thing like that where they could be of assistance to law enforcement, to allow law enforcement to have a little bit of a break and focus on other things. And of course, the other thing that the California National Guard is going to help with, and I wish I didn't even have to say this, but they're going to help with looting. And unfortunately, we have heard from our law enforcement sources that some people have been detained for looting or for being somewhere where they shouldn't have been, where they didn't live, they didn't have the right driver's license information to prove that they had a legitimate reason to be in a certain area. So unfortunately, on top of the victimization that these fires have caused for thousands of people, you have people being re-victimized, and the little things that they have left are possibly being taken by looters.
You know, and Governor Newsom was pretty emphatic in his words here when he tweeted earlier tonight that the California Guard has arrived to Los Angeles to support local law enforcement. Taking advantage of evacuated communities is absolutely sick, he wrote. Looting will not be tolerated. And that is sort of the message that city and county leaders have echoed throughout the course of all of this, Ileana.
Absolutely. If you have no reason to be in a neighborhood, then you shouldn't be there. Plain and simple. There's no reason to be a looky-loo. We have plenty of news sources, plenty of people who are providing great video on all sorts of social media that are, of course, major networks like us, where if you're curious about what is going on with the fire, you, of course, can turn to us and simply watch it on TV. There's really no reason to try to go in person to see any of this devastation. And there's definitely no reason to be in anyone's home where you don't belong, or to be in anyone's vehicle where you don't belong. A lot of people who had to flee, of course, had to abandon their vehicles. A lot of them did the right thing and left their vehicle keys in the car in case fire department personnel needed to move those vehicles out of the way instead of being bulldozed out of the way. So we know that there's situations where people can take advantage of what is going on. And that is exactly what California Governor Newsom and law enforcement personnel here in the area are advising against. Again, if you have no reason to be in these burn zones, you have no reason to be in anyone's property where you don't belong.
Now we're watching the unit with the CHP here. It looks like they've just passed the Rose Bowl. Are they taking the 210 around? Where would they get off? Maybe Lincoln and deploy to Lake in that area from that side?
Yeah, correct. They are making the transition now to the 210 freeway. And we had been told earlier, based off of information that our assignment desk was able to gather, that the California National Guard would be going to Lake Avenue, was what we heard. So it's going to be somewhere along Lake Avenue. And of course, we wish we could follow them a little bit further to show you guys their arrival and the great work that they're going to do when they arrive. But unfortunately, again, because of that temporary flight restriction, we're pretty limited in how much further we're able to follow them. But I can tell you, before I had them obscured here by the trees, and there's the CHP officer, so we'll see him from every now and then. But again, they're going to be making their way over to the Eaton Fire. Lake Avenue is where we were told they're likely heading, but they're currently just completing the transition to the 210 freeway from the 134.
And it's interesting because there is a Lake Avenue exit just off the 210 there. They seem to be going in the back way, which may be the fastest way for them.
All right, Elia Morena, live in News Chopper 4. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Right now at 11, we're continuing our coverage of the wildfire emergency in Southern California. We have now been on the air for 3 days straight, bringing you the latest. Several big fires still burning tonight. The Kenneth Fire started near West Hills around 2:30 this afternoon. It has burned more than 900 acres. It's 35% contained, and forward progress has been stopped. Investigators are looking into whether this fire was intentionally started. Just under 20,000 acres have burned with 6% containment in the Palisades Fire. More than 5,000 buildings have been destroyed in the Pacific Palisades and Malibu areas. We now know there have been 10 fire-related deaths across LA County. In Altadena, the Eaton Fire is burning more than 13,000 acres and is 0% contained. One firefighter was injured and taken to the hospital. Evacuation orders are still in effect. Meantime, the FAA is investigating a firefighting aircraft striking a drone this afternoon near the Palisades Fire. It was a Canadian aircraft Super Scooper that hit the nose of the drone. LAFD confirmed the aircraft sustained wing damage, but no one was hurt.
And this is, a perfect example of why we say you cannot fly drones near emergency operations.
NBC4 News at 11 starts with breaking news.
It's 11 o'clock on this Thursday night, and this marks 60 hours of our continuous coverage of Southern California's wildfire emergency. Good evening, everyone. I'm Coleen Williams.
And I'm Michael Brownlee. We have learned late tonight that the National Guard has boots on the ground in LA County to support firefighters and first responders as they continue to focus on saving lives. We also have team coverage tonight with our team of meteorologists and a team of reporters in the Pacific Palisades and Altadena.
We begin right now with NBC's Valina Jones. She's at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena with a grassroots volunteer effort underway right now. Valina.
That's right. You know, Coleen, this energy is so electric here. We're at a parking lot right across from the Rose Bowl where volunteer efforts are underway. You can see behind me there is a truck that just came here within the past 30 minutes full of donated items for victims of these fires. And you can see an assembly line right now of just dozens of volunteers helping get all these supplies off the truck, and they're categorizing them into different areas. You can see that there's water, supplies, diapers, things for children. There's food here as well. And so a lot of effort here tonight. These are all volunteers that have come here because they want to help. And there is a group of people that are coordinating all of this, a group of street vendors here from LA. And I want to talk to Jimmy right now, who is one of those vendors coordinating these efforts. You guys all came together through the power of social media on TikTok. Tell me how this volunteer effort came to be.
So we are street vendors on TikTok with the Clover King Agency with the K. So yesterday we started with 2 hot dog cards. It started with everybody you see around us as a team effort through the power of TikTok. All of our TikTok viewers, they send us donations through Cash App, Zelle, Venmo. So with their donations, we're able to go buy all the ingredients like hot dogs, mayo, mustard, ketchup, bread, waters, you know, and so on. And yeah, we just started giving back to the people that lost their homes. I'm actually a resident here in Pasadena. I also had to evacuate. I didn't have power for 48 hours. So to distract my mind, I'd rather give back to those that actually lost their homes in Altadena, and also to give back to the first responders, the firemen, you know, the LAPD, the ambulance. It keeps my mind busy, and it's just a joy to give back.
And Jimmy, I know, so when we take a look at these donations, we're not talking about just a few donations, right? This has really spread across TikTok, social media, where you've had tens of thousands of donations, correct?
Correct. Tens of thousands of donations since yesterday. We haven't even left. We slept here in the lot in the morning. We've been at it since 8 in the morning until right now. As you guys seen earlier, there's U-Hauls, trucks, just nonstop donations and people coming together as a community, a bunch of volunteers that wouldn't even know. And just the power of TikTok, like I said, people watch our lives. While we do this, we're on live, and just, man, this is amazing.
And talk about why this is so important to you, you know, giving back to the community, making sure that people are taken care of in this devastating time that they're facing.
The reason this is important to me is because at the end of the day, this is all we have, is each other. You know, humanity just coming together as one and being there for each other in hard times like this.
What has the response been? Because I know some people have come here to the parking lot. Some people do know about the donations. But you said, you know, you're getting a lot of donations, so you need people to actually come here and pick up these donations. So what has the response been?
The response has been great. Like I said, like I keep saying, through the power of TikTok, it's been great. We have heard so many stories. As soon as we give the families a water or a hot dog, they shed in tears because a lot of people, you know, they lost their homes, and I feel for them. You know, and the response has been great.
And what kind of donations are here? We see stuff for children, we have seen the food, we've seen the water. Kind of, what are you guys asking people to bring here?
They're bringing everything from waters, hot dogs, baby wipes, diapers. They have, clothes, shoes, blankets, jackets, you know, supplies that you will need to survive, mask. Yeah, just a little bit of everything.
Anything and everything that you can think of. Is there anything that you guys need? Is there a particular donation that you guys are lacking right now?
Honestly, we're not lacking on anything. We're doing great right now. I believe we have a lot of hot meals. We have a bunch of water, sodas, juices, blankets, jackets. We got baby food. You know, I know it's important to have masks, especially because of the conditions right now of the air.
And we see dozens of volunteers here. You know, how many people have helped you in this effort here with just in the past couple of days that you started this?
Hundreds of people, especially my team right here that you see around us, and then everybody in TikTok. There's people donating from Colorado, Atlanta, man, from all over the place. There was this girl that came from San Diego and brought tamales. She drove all the way to San Diego just to drop out tamales, and she left. That was, to me, that was amazing.
And what are people, when people come all the way from San Diego, you know, what are they telling you about why they decided to come here?
They said that they watch our lives, and they wanted to just help us out and give back. You know, they were just thinking about the people, to feed the people that lost their homes.
And how long will you guys be here? How long will you be taking donations?
We're gonna be here all night until tomorrow, and just maybe all weekend.
And I know you said you slept here overnight, and so you're continuing to bring in the donations overnight.
That's correct. I slept here last night. Like I said, I'm a resident. I still have to be evacuated from my household. So to keep myself distracted, I'm here. This is where I'm at, and I'm going to continue doing this for the people.
Perfect, Jimmy. Thank you so much. So, you know, we're continuing to see this volunteer effort. You know, some people that know each other through social media, some people that are complete strangers but just want to lend a helping hand. Again, we've been here for about an hour, and just the energy from these volunteers has been extremely electric. You know, everyone's just happy. When this truck came in, they were yelling, they were cheering because they saw all the donations coming in. They know that will help all the tens of thousands of families in need. Sending it back to you guys.
It's interesting, Valinda, to hear Jimmy say that he has been evacuated. He's a resident of Pasadena, and he just had to do something. We spoke to Dr. Lucy Jones yesterday, and she said that in fact, you know, helping others while when you're in need yourself really does something for both people or both parties involved. I can feel Jimmy's energy and what it does for him to help others. Are these volunteers here to help unload and help organize, or are there actually people here receiving some of these goods?
So this is going to be the location for both. What you see right now is all volunteers, but we have also seen families and cars that are in need that are coming here to pick up donations. And so this is both the drop-off and the pickup location. But what you see right now is a complete volunteer effort. And so people that are in need are trickling in. Of course, we are getting into the late hours, so we assume a lot of people are getting some rest. But throughout the day, that they have seen a lot of people in need come here to this location, picking up those essential items to survive, really.
Valina, what is the process for that? Do people have to show, you know, they live in the area or they're evacuated, or if they just come in and say, we need this, can you help us? Do they trust that?
Well, Coleen, let me ask Jimmy that question for you. So, Jimmy, the question is, you know, what's the process as those people that are in need come here? Do they need to show ID? Like, how do you know that those are the people that have been displaced?
Honestly, there's no process. They just come and tell us their story, or, you know, we just give it back to anybody. You know, even if it's mainly for the people that lost their homes and had to evacuate it for first responders, but we're not looking for IDs or anything. Even if you want a meal or you want to come and help out, you're more than welcome.
And I will mention, this is not a new effort for Jimmy and these vendors. They have been doing this work for a year, right?
Exactly. Yes, for a year now. We also, on a weekly basis, we go to downtown LA Scaro and we feed the less fortunate as a team.
All right, so this is something that you know has been laid on your heart. You guys have been doing this for the past year, just helping people in need, and now you see this extreme need for all the people that have been displaced from the fire and are jumping in this too.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, thank you so much, Jimmy. So, like you heard from Jimmy, no need to show ID. They're just hoping to help anyone in need.
It really is something to see.
Yes,
If you look at the right side of the screen here, that's a picture of all the activity going on there. Yeah. And you can see it just grew so very, very quickly. As you pointed out, Michael, everybody wants the need or feels the need to help in some way.
Yeah, and we talk about the power of social media and the power of live television. You can feel the energy there on the ground. Let's take it up topside to Eliana Moreno. Eliana, can you feel the energy there from the chopper? I mean, it's huge.
It is pretty big, Michael, and I want to let folks know where this is because as we were hearing, this is for the people who have been affected by these fires. So if that's you and you're wondering where you could go to get some of these items, again, they're not checking for anything. They're taking you at your word. But of course, this is for the people that have been affected by the fires. Now, there's the Rose Bowl. So I wanted to give you a proximity shot. There's the Rose Bowl. That's the southern side of the bowl. And it's right in the front entrance. It's in the southeast parking lot. So that is that parking lot where we saw Jimmy, the organizer of this all, taking in those donations. I see a lot of diapers and baby food. That is so expensive, but so vital for young families that have been displaced. So there are a lot of diapers. If anyone's listening to me, if that's what you need, lots of diapers. We see baby food. We see toilet paper, lots of water, all essential items just to help people out at least for a couple of days while they get at least in some way or another back on their feet, get in a hotel, get in with a family member. But for now, if you need any of these items or if you just need a hot meal, we do see that there's a food truck here offering free meals. There's all sorts of hot dog vendors. This is a great place to go. You will be welcomed with open arms. Again, the southeast parking lot at the Rose Bowl.
Marina, overhead over the Rose Bowl right now. Thank you for that. As you can see, Michael, everyone, there's a lot going on with regards to the Eaton fire, any fire in Southern California tonight. As we pointed out, that is the Rose Bowl. We also know the National Guard, the California Army National Guard, has been deployed. When last they saw, they were headed towards Lake Avenue and that burned out area we've seen from the Eaton fire. We're going to switch right now to NBC4's Darcia Phillips. She's live in the Palisades Village area, one of the main intersections. We know this area used to have a lot of businesses, cafes, juice shops. Darcia, is anything standing?
So there are some businesses that were unscathed, but unfortunately there are so many that did not survive this fire. And again, the destruction is really unimaginable. This is a restaurant that you're seeing behind me that is completely gone because of the fire. But I do want to walk over to across the street because I want to show you just the devastation. Take a look at this. This was a shopping strip mall. It looks like this right here was a sunglass shop. There was also a yogurt shop here, but it really gives you an idea of how devastated this area is. This is the heart of the Pacific Palisades Village, and this is the destruction that we're seeing all across. I'm going to pan the light over so you can see a little bit more of it. It really is unrecognizable. And you know, these are businesses, and there's homes that are also destroyed. Those are the power lines that are obviously de-energized, but they have come down because of the fire as well. So much destruction here in the Palisades. And I do want to mention that it's a very different feel here tonight than it was last night. You know what? I actually think we see the National Guard coming in. You can just see the headlights, but we knew that the National Guard was heading here to the Palisades for support, and I think we see them rolling in right now. There's several trucks that are coming down Sunset Boulevard right now, so that is the good news. But I do want to say it is such a different feel here today than last night. So last night we were told that people were allowed back in the area if they had their ID and if they could bike or hike or walk in, use their electric scooter. So we saw a lot more people here in the Palisades. Well, tonight it's very different. There are hard closures at all of the major endpoints into the Palisades, and I think that is because that they want to make sure that the folks who are here are just the first responders and the press. They do not want to have people who are not supposed to be here. They want to also make sure that there's no looting going on. We did see yesterday at least 2 people detained, and then officers talking to a group of other people trying to make sure that they are up here. So I know that that is a concern for a lot of residents who live up here, hoping that their homes, the ones that are still standing, are being taken care of. So that is the difference that we see here. Last night I was able to talk to several people because they had been able to come up here and they were trying to check on their homes or try and help save their homes. There was one gentleman who came up trying to get medication for his parents. That is not the case today. It is completely quiet here. We do not see a lot of people here. What I am told is that tomorrow, starting tomorrow morning, if you come to the closure areas with your ID, you can be escorted up to your home to get medication or get some valuables to check on your home for a few minutes. You'll be escorted by police and then escorted back out of here. So there's a very different feel here in the Palisades, and that, of course, is for the safety and the security of the residents and their homes. Michael, Colleen.
Yeah, Darsha, you have spent a number of hours up in that area. You say tonight it's a much different feel to see the National Guard and making its way into the area. We saw them leave and make their way, at least a contingency of those folks, making their way over to the Eaton fire. Again, this is part of the plan here. In terms of folks getting up to see their properties, that is not happening anymore. But again, you say tomorrow, those folks may have a chance to perhaps retrieve the necessary medications and perhaps some valuables, but it's going to be a hit it and quit it. You got to get out of there.
Exactly, and it's going to be, you're going to have to be prepared because it appears that a lot of folks are going to try and take advantage of this opening. So you're going to be escorted up there with a police escort, have some time at your home, and then you're going to be asked to leave. So it's going to be a very hopefully organized operation, but it may take some time before you're actually able to get to your house. So if that is something that you're planning on doing, make sure that you understand that you're not going to be able to stay at your home. You're not going to be able to, pack a lot of things. It's really just a few minutes to get into your home and take your things and leave.
Darsha, quickly, any idea where the Guard will deploy there?
That is a good question. I'm not exactly sure. We just saw them come up Sunset Boulevard, and I was hoping to see them on the other side, but we're going to try and figure out exactly where they are going. But we knew that they were headed to this location. We knew that they were coming to the Palisades, one of the areas that is so devastated by this fire. So we're going to try and find out exactly where they will be deployed and what they will be doing.
We saw them on the move earlier tonight, Coleen, out of Ontario. So we're talking within, 3.5, 4 hours tops? They're already in deployment here. They are making their way, like we said, to the Eaton fire and now the Palisades fire. So,
and given the proximity of Pasadena to the staging area at the 134 and the CHP area, they should be boots on the ground in Pasadena right now as we speak.
I wouldn't doubt it. All right. Robert Kovacic also covering the Palisades fire for us. Robert.
Michael and Colleen, it's so difficult for the people who live in the Pacific Palisades who are so desperate to get home to check on what may be left of their property, to try and understand what's going on just from the images that they see on their television screens. And we are doing our best to try and be your eyes and ears for you. Let us just sort of take you down our journey on Sunset Boulevard tonight from the very first road closure at Mandeville Canyon. It is well organized, and they are doing a fantastic job, our first responders. And we have seen the people who live in Mandeville Canyon try and take care of them, and the people in the Palisades try and take care of them, bringing food and water. I believe the video you are looking at right now is something that we also saw tonight. This was a hard closure. And when I say hard, I'm sorry, producers? Yes. Yes. This was a video that you are looking at of a apartment building that is on fire, that continues to smolder. A hard closure, meaning that they're not even going to allow the media in. So we had to reroute and try to get a visual from another angle. And the reason why is that you look at this building on Sunset Boulevard, they are convinced that the roof is going to collapse and that the building is going to collapse at any hour. So they are keeping us very far apart. That's just one of the things we saw as we were driving down Sunset Boulevard Boulevard. We also saw near the Highlands, we were told by the LAFD they are still concentrating firefighting efforts up there. We did see a number of firefighters there. They continue to try and work on hotspots. All of those cars that had to be bulldozed out of the way due to people running from panic and fear on Sunset at Highlands, some of those cars actually that were bulldozed out of the way actually then caught fire as the fire spread in the overnight hours on that very first night of the Palisades fire. We also saw a number of different fire agencies, what they call mutual support. We were with a fire crew from San Bruno in Northern California that has not slept since being up since Wednesday morning at 6 a.m., putting out a fire along the streets on Sunset. So what you are looking at right now is a town that you are not allowed to enter. We have spoken with the LAPD, and our sources within inside the LAPD are confident that the legalities, if you will be finalized by tomorrow morning, and then an official curfew will go into effect at 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. starting tomorrow night here in the Pacific Palisades, and for good reason when you consider that they're trying to keep out looters, they're trying to keep out vandals. Our NBC News Investigates team has learned that at least three people have been arrested for trying to loot and enter homes in the Santa Monica area, carrying what is being quoted as burglary tools. And again, when it comes to tomorrow and the people of the Pacific Palisades trying to enter their homes, just to reiterate what we have learned and what Darsha was saying, there are specific entrances and roadblocks, but if you are coming in, let's say, from the east to the west, and you're at Sunset and you stop at Mandeville, they will stop you at Mandeville. They will ask for your driver's license. That driver's license must actually have your specific address. They will question you, and they will be specific questions. They're only going to let you in for needs, for medical needs, for you or for your family, prescriptions if you want. And then they will ask you to pull over. They will put you either in a convoy if there are other people going in the same area, or they will go with you individually. They will take you to your property. They will allow you to go into your property briefly, and then they will bring you back. So you have to give yourself ample time to do that. And also, when we were there just late this afternoon, there was a line of traffic. The LAPD says they're hoping that they're going to begin that process again in the morning. And then, of course, tomorrow, the Pacific Palisades is expected, and we are expecting to put a dot on that and cross our T's and dot our I's on that, and that will go into effect tomorrow night. So curfews in place for at least this fire region and beyond. So if you're trying to come back in to check on your home, it is going to be some time tomorrow, only for medical necessities. Let's go back to you.
All right, Robert Kovacic reporting live on the Palisades fire. Thank you, Robert. Macy Jenkins joins us once again live from Altadena at Lake and Woodbury. And Macy, we understand the National Guard has arrived.
Colleen, they are here on Woodbury, and they've told me that they are actually setting up all along Woodbury. Now, Woodbury Street is right on the border of Pasadena and Altadena. And here we have the National Guard. What they've told me that they are going to be doing is a few different things. They're going to be acting as support for local law enforcement agencies. They have food, they have water, they have other supplies for the soldiers that are here. But also think about all the coordinated effort. Think about what the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department is doing, working along with local agencies, working with CAL FIRE, working with the fire departments. They cannot all do the same thing. So someone's going to have to help manage the ID checkpoints and the checkpoints to make sure that the only people who are coming into these areas that have been hard hit by the fire are police, fire, and media. Those are the only people they are letting inside of this area. Now, I had my photographer, David Gregory, over here show you what we're looking at. These military vehicles, we don't see these all of the time in our neighborhood, on our neighborhood streets, but they are now lining the street. And when I asked the National Guardsman, when I said, what is it that you're going to do? He says, we're going to do anything that these organizations need us to do. Now, I'm in front of the St. Elizabeth Parish School, which incredibly is still here, It looks undamaged by the fire. So much debris is all around. But something that caught my eye here, and I don't want to get too flowery, but I'm looking here. A single broken ornament on the ground in front of a church that is still standing. Broken, but not completely done. This neighborhood trying to, of course, they want to rebuild, they want to come together, and the National Guard here is doing that support, is trying to help them do what they can, especially because, as we saw before, there are still hot spots burning, and one of the things that one of their main tasks is keeping people out who do not belong in the area, people who are looking to take advantage, looking to loot, looking to break into buildings that have been evacuated. Even if they haven't burned to the ground, there are still people who are looking to take advantage, and that is something that, of course, Coleen and Michael, as we've been telling you all afternoon, law enforcement, our new DA, they say this is something they do not want. They want to prosecute, they don't want to see. Unfortunately, we have seen arrests due to looters, but they're doing everything they can to stop that from happening. That's the very latest here in Altadena. I'll send it back to you.
You know, it's a sad state that it actually has to come to this, you know, taking advantage of the most vulnerable during this particular time. But Macy, I can only imagine it's going to be a sheer sense of release for law enforcement and firefighters when they see those National Guard troops there.
Right.
And in fact, they are now freed up to take care of what they have to take care of.
Exactly, exactly. And that is many different tasks. Like we were saying earlier, some of the firefighters, they still have to go from street to street to make sure that the gas lines are off. But the firefighters can't do that if the streets have people who do not belong there, if they're crowding the streets, or if they are looking in certain properties. It's not safe and it's illegal. So it's definitely great to have the National Guard here just to be that extra support for our local law enforcement, fire and police.
Macy, what is the intersection there? You said you're on Woodbury. What's the other cross street there? And has anybody actually driven? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm on Woodbury and Lake, Coleen.
Woodbury and
again,
Lake.
right on that border of Pasadena. Yeah, Woodbury and Lake. Pasadena is just to the south of us, and the largely burned areas, the areas that were affected by the fire, those are north, to the north of us. So I would say about 1 to 2 blocks from us, that's when you start seeing the major devastation. Like I said, they're going to be stationed along Woodbury. They didn't say how many, you know, if it's every 2 blocks, every 3 blocks. But as we saw, the convoy from News Trapper 4, part of that convoy is here. And they want to make sure that their presence is known. So it's not just the one vehicle. They have multiple vehicles here. And again, he said, the National Guardsman said, I'm here to support them, to do whatever they need. There is a California Highway Patrol officer here, and he is checking IDs to, again, make sure that the people who belong in this neighborhood are just media, police, and firefighters.
And you can tell they're checking already.
Yeah.
People who live in that area know Woodbury. It's one of those roads that connects Altadena, Pasadena, with the other side of the Rose Bowl, if you will, and La Cañada, Flint Ridge area. So it's sort of a back road, not always traveled that much, but you know, it's one of those main corridors that
you know it if you live here.
You know it if you live there. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, Macy.
I say at the very least, just the optics alone would be enough for me to stay away.
Absolutely.
You
And
know.
you know, I'm sure there is some of that. You know, while they're talking about what, Michael, 400
was the
Cal
request,
Guard members being here. We saw a small portion of that tonight. No doubt more will be coming.
All right, Macy Jenkins live for us there in Altadena, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
We have a little programming business to tell you about right now. The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon will be on Cozy TV tonight. That's channel 4.2, or you can always check your local listings.
All right, we are going to turn things now over to meteorologist Melissa McGee. Again, we are keeping an eye on the low humidity.
Right.
The dry weather.
You got it.
and the winds. Did I hit all three?
You hit all three.
Okay.
And one more.
Wish there weren't three, but you hit all three.
Right. I mean, it's the hot spots, the flare-ups that we're watching because of the Santa Anas. It's the wide-spreading fires, and it's the poor air quality as we go throughout the next few days. I want to show you what's going on as we look at the conditions. The shifting of the winds, we had that earlier today, which is why that fire broke out near West Hills, the Kenneth fire. Good news, firefighters did stop forward progression with that fire. It's 0% contained, but at least forward spreading of that fire no longer an issue at this moment. But hot spots did flare up here in Southern California because of the turning of the winds this afternoon. And that allows the rapid expansion of flames because of those Santa Anas. No matter where you are here in Southern California, because a lot of the fires right now are burning in LA County, you don't necessarily have to be underneath one of those fires or in one of those communities that is being evacuated, because we've got widespread areas of smoke, which is leading to poor air quality. The issue tonight, we've got some winds and some winds gusting in some locations. I want to show you void of any wind for the most part here in LA County. It's really out across those wind-prone spots. So Santa Clarita, we've got a gust of 26 miles per hour, really strong tonight in Ontario, gusting close to 60 miles per hour. And the red is an indication of winds anywhere from 60 to 70 miles per hour in terms of those gusts. But let's break it down in terms of the observation data and the sites with the fires that we're tracking. We'll take you down to the Palisades fire. We've got a relative humidity rising for Topanga Beach. That's great, up to 25%. It's great because we've got more moisture moving into the atmosphere. Santa Monica, relative humidity for you up to 43%. I keep focusing in on Santa Monica Mountains because the winds are gusting up to 27 miles per hour. They've been dealing with a stiff and constant northerly wind. Later on tonight, it's very possible into the first half of the day tomorrow, Santa Monica Mountains could have winds gusting anywhere from 50 to 65 miles per hour. They are still underneath a high wind warning. Tracking the Eaton fire, we've got winds that are calm, but the relative humidity is really low, and it's low in a lot of spots. The only place where we're starting to see some recovery in the sense that we're getting more moisture coming in from the Pacific Ocean from the beach and working its way inland right along the basin and the coast. But as you travel up to the north, these numbers are down into the teens and the single digits. So it stays dry. You've got those Santa Ana winds that move on through, which dries out the atmosphere. And of course, it helps to spread these fires more quickly across our region. So that's the issue. We've got the wildfires, we've got pop-ups and flare-ups across our region, and poor air quality, not just for LA County, but even extending back across Orange County and portions of San Bernardino and Riverside counties. Not even tonight, even as we head into the rest of our weekend. We're tracking the fires. We're on top of it for you. For now, Coleen and
that would be Michael.
I'll sit back over there talking to me.
I've been called worse.
Michael, back to you.
Appreciate it.
You got it.
Totally understand. All right. Speaking of names, Kevin Geis is back on live with us right now. He's been covering this fire, the Kenneth fire that threatened the West Hills, part of Calabasas today, and he has more on the investigation into the arsonist. Kevin.
Coleen and Michael, good evening to you both. It's been an absolutely roller coaster of a day for a lot of folks right in this Woodland Hills area. We're standing at the top of Victory Boulevard here, sort of a closed off section, access to some of the trails here. I want to take you through, though, a little bit of sort of the journey over here just from the station on the 101. Just massive plumes of smoke that were filling the Woodland Hills area as we were sort of working our way up into the Hills area. We found sort of a lot of closed roads. We worked our way up into some of the neighborhoods, and it was just a lot of people figuring out exactly what their next move was going to be. They could see on the other side, right into Ventura County, a lot of the smoke kind of billowing up, a lot of questions about which direction it was going, but there was also a relative amount of confidence, people feeling that wind, trying to determine exactly which way that fire was going to shift, and a lot of people were choosing to voluntarily evacuate. We caught a lot of people in their front yards. They were spraying down their houses, spraying down their lawns, anything they could. They were packing their trucks, grabbing any sort of valuable they could, making sure their animals were taken care of and putting them into vehicles, getting ready to make a move. But still, a lot of people just sort of hanging out in their front lawns and watching it very, very closely. Again, trying to determine what that next move would be. The fire department, police departments working their way through, letting people know what was going on. And since then, because that wind really kept in that one direction and brought it sort of down into the Agora Hills area, they really sort of calmed down a little bit, and a lot of people have since returned. Things have been very quiet. A lot of people very grateful. People have been dropping off water and snacks and food to the police department that's here. And I want to take you back sort of here to the top of Victory Boulevard here, because this, we've learned over the last few hours, is currently an active crime scene. I want to take you over to just a little bit of video that we got earlier, believed to be a potential suspect in handcuffs. We've blurred their face until we get more information from officials. That is a potential suspect in an arson investigation for this Kenneth fire. That investigators are sort of zeroing in on this specific area again at the top of Victory Boulevard here. Now, the information we do have is limited, but it's started with a number of citizens detained and unidentified persons spotted in the area of the West Valley close to where the Kenneth fire is burning. And it's not immediately clear that this person that the LAPD is talking to is responsible for the West Hills Kenneth fire, but investigators are looking into it, and they're also looking into the possible connections with some of the other fires that are currently burning in the area. So a lot of people are back in their homes tonight in this specific section of Los Angeles, but a lot of people also very concerned, still with a lot of questions, especially we've caught a couple people actually somewhat recently sort of coming out, asking a few questions now that the wind has really started to pick back up again. Even just within the last hour and a half, we've really sort of watched that wind sort of come back. And previously it was sort of crossing me this way, but now I'm just sort of feeling it right directly in my face. So a lot of people still with a lot of questions. I wouldn't say there are a lot of people who are resting super easy tonight, but I think there are a lot of grateful people in this neighborhood for the work that was done here, the work that was done to keep the Kenneth fire moving in the opposite direction, and a lot of people who are grateful just to be back in their homes tonight. We're going to send it back to you.
And a lot of people are grateful that the Kenneth fire is now 35% contained.
Right, they jumped on that one right away
Certainly
at 2:30 this afternoon. Got to over 900 acres, but as you pointed out, it's at least a third contained at this point.
All right, NBC's Valina Jones is still at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. Again, giving us another look at this grassroots volunteer effort underway right now.
Grab a trash bag. Yeah, that's exactly right. We're in a parking lot across from the Rose Bowl. It's parking lot. You can hear yelling going on right now. Volunteers are talking and giving direction as to what's next. I want you to see what is behind me, because there is a huge volunteer effort here. We have things for young children, diapers, Pampers. We have even toys for young children over here. If you come over here, there's the canned goods, food for people. Over a little bit further from the food, there is water. On the opposite side, there's blankets and hot food for, those families in need that are coming here to get some help. And, when we look over here, there's blankets, there's clothes, there's hygiene materials, and so there's all these things that people have lost in the fire. All these people here, the majority of them that you see are volunteers. There are also people that have been displaced from their homes coming here, some even sleeping here tonight. All of this is a grassroots effort that was started by street vendors through TikTok, the power of social media. And the word has just spread. And so there's several different organizations and different volunteers that are here tonight, including Maria. I want to bring Maria in. She's one of those volunteers, one of the dozens of volunteers that are here tonight helping, trying to give people food, water, supplies. Maria, talk to me about how you found out about this effort and why this is so important to you.
Yes, so this whole area started with two people that were giving out hot dogs, and one of the persons actually got evacuated from the zone, and he had to sleep here in this parking lot because he had nowhere to go. So he called his dad, and they started serving hot dogs to all the people that didn't have any food. And through the social media, it was social media really that impacted this whole system now. Now it's actually a zone, of humanitarian zone, where people can come and drop off anything that they want to donate, or can come and volunteer to help the community that's impacted by all these fires. What got me here was was a friend and I decided to come because we're not only former healthcare workers, but we're also leaders in the community. We provide a lot of services to the community on a day-to-day basis, and these are times that we all need to come together. And it's beautiful to see LA community together. This is community-based. Everyone here is either a resident from it's either OC, Orange County, San Bernardino, and all of LA County, really. And it's beautiful to see everybody here.
Yeah, just in the time that we've been here, we've felt the energy, right? We've seen people clapping. We've seen people galvanizing, exciting people. When the truck came with all those donations, everyone yelled in excitement. How has this been for you to be here on the ground, to be helping in this effort, but also to be surrounded by all this energy in such a heartbreaking time?
It's hope. It gives us hope because in a day-to-day base as a leader in the community of LA County, it gets really hard. And to see this horrific times happening right now, and seeing community come in with hope, come in with love, come in with passion that no, we're not going to give up. We're not going to give up. We're going to get through this together as community. That just really gave me even more fire to continue to do the work that I'm doing because it's a passion and it's a journey that we're walking. There's different leaders here. There's different organizations. There's different people that are just wanting to be here to feel that passion.
And I know you shared with me the people in need, people who have been evacuated, people who have lost everything. Some of those people are sleeping in their cars here in this parking lot tonight, yesterday as well. Have you been speaking with those people? What are they saying to you?
Yes, there is a lot of people still here. I believe yesterday was worse because of the ashes. It was really bad here. Today the ashes have come down a lot, but all the people that really I'm talking to, they're really sad. They're in shock. They don't know what to do, and some of them are crying, and I'm just giving them hope. Don't give up. Our greater creator, God, who you believe in, is right here giving you what you need right now at this moment in time. And we're going to get through this no matter what. There's going to be a way of rebuilding anything that is objects, luxury, whatever it is. You cannot get your time back and you cannot get your life back, and you're safe. So therefore, let us help you right now. And that's really what it is.
How does it make you feel to be a part of the impact, to be helping here in this moment?
It makes me feel really, really good. Like I said, this is something that we do on day-to-day basis in the communities. This is just a boost of hope, a boost of empowerment, a boost of love, a boost of direction, and a boost of definition of you are on the right path, and this is what you're meant to do in this world, Maria. So therefore, me being here is just an honor to experience and witness all these beautiful people just coming together. And there's some people I'm bumping into right now, and they're like, Maria, and I was like, how'd you get here? And they're like, oh, I saw it on TikTok. Oh, I saw your story. And that right there is what, we're making an impact together. So
the power of social media, the power of community, bringing everybody together. How long do you anticipate being here? And can you kind of tell us, give us a grasp of how many people in need have been coming here?
Wow, it's in the hundreds. People in need, it's in the hundreds. And this is going to go on until it's not needed anymore. We're going to be here 24-hour rounds, so we're asking people to come to volunteer. We're asking people to come and donate if they can. And this is just going to go on until we're done here. And obviously, the fire is still not contained. We're also helping firefighters, first responders, and also construction crews that come by here and pick up food, or we go in there and drop off truckloads of already made food or whatever they need over there as well, because we're so close to them.
Right. All right. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Maria. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. We'll let you get back to work. I know the volunteer effort continues. Yes. So thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you so much.
So you see this in real time, just the power of community, the power of social media, getting that word out. That's what brought all these volunteers here. That's what's brought members of the community in need here too. They have also been seeing seeing this on TikTok, and so they know where to go to get supplies, people who have lost everything. And so, you know, you can just feel the energy here from all the volunteers that want to make a difference. You heard it from Maria. They're going to continue to be here until there is no need. So sending it back to you guys in the studio.
You know, I heard a couple things there. We've been talking about fire zones. We've been talking about evacuation zones. And tonight we're talking about, you and I keyed in on the same thing here, a humanitarian zone. And if you look at the time, it's 11:45 on Thursday night. It's been a hard week for everyone. Even if you're not affected, you're looking at this. You can feel the energy coming from the Rose Bowl and those volunteers out there tonight.
And Valena, what I will say is, you mentioned it, and Maria mentioned it. I mean, these aren't the best of health conditions to be out in this atmosphere, and yet it, as you mentioned, Coleen, 11:46 in the evening, and this place is bustling as if it were 11 o'clock in the morning. So again, these people really leading with their hearts with this effort. Valena Jones, down at the Rose Bowl, we appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, we're going to go back to Darsha Phillips right now, live in the Palisades Village, at one of the main intersections there. Darsha, when we talked to you a few moments ago, you mentioned the National Guard. You'd seen them roll through. Any idea, have you been able to catch up with them? Any idea where they're being deployed?
So what we do know is that when the National Guard gets here, I'm not exactly sure if that was the National Guard. We have seen a lot of patrols through, but it did look like a lot of trucks that came through. But we do know that when they are deployed here, they will be at the checkpoints. That's where they're mainly going to be. So again, this is such a different situation than it was last night. We do not see as many people here, but we are seeing a lot of patrols of police officers, making sure that people who are not supposed to be up here are not up here. Now, behind me, we are here in the Palisades Village. And again, these are some of the businesses that have been completely destroyed. There are some businesses that are still standing, like the Caruso Center is still standing. What's really eerie, Coleen, is that we still hear a lot of the fire alarms from some of these businesses, and then also the bank alarms that are continuing to go off, that they've been going off since the fire 2 days ago. Now, this is a shopping center. The roof collapsed here. It completely is devastated and unrecognizable. I'm going to try and turn the light here so you can see a little bit more of it and see the scope of the damage and the devastation. What you're also seeing are some before and after pictures and videos of these businesses. Again, I can't say it enough, the landscape of this area, it looks completely different than what it once was. And I want to go through some of the businesses that have been lost and some of the places that have been lost here in the Pacific Palisades, the Ralphs and the Gelsons on Sunset Boulevard here in Pali Village, the Chase Bank, the U.S. Bank, the Starbucks, Casa Nostra restaurant, also Corpus Christi Church here in Palisades, no longer standing. First Presbyterian Church here in the Palisades, no longer standing. Palisades Elementary School and also Pali High damaged by the fire. So much devastation. We also saw the Pearson Theater, the Palisades Theater, go up in flames. We were there when that roof collapsed. It's a very large structure. So again, so much devastation. And then also in Malibu, guys, PCH looks completely different. All of those homes that face the ocean, most of them are gone. Moon Shadows is gone. Rosenthal Wines is gone. Chilada Thai is gone. So many of these things, the Topanga Motel, no longer there. So a lot of these, I grew up here in Los Angeles, so these businesses, these institutions are things that I've seen as I've driven up and down PCH or come into the Palisades. And again, folks are going to come back in here and really not recognize the place. It's really difficult to kind of put into words. I've said it before, but the landscape of this area has completely changed. Now, I do want to mention, again, we're not seeing as many people here in the Palisades Village or even up in the neighborhoods. Yesterday, it was a much different story. They were allowing, officials were allowing folks to walk in or bike in. So we saw a lot of people on their bikes or their electric scooters or their electric bikes. Tonight, that is not the story. They are not allowing anyone up here, whether you live here or not. We're hearing that tomorrow morning, if you have an ID that shows you live in the Palisades, you will be escorted up by a police officer to spend a few minutes in your home, get some medication, and then leave. So that's what the story is right now. And again, very quiet here in the Palisades. We do see a lot of patrols, much more than we saw yesterday. A lot of police officers, a lot of firefighters. And again, when the National Guard gets here, they will be deployed at those checkpoints to make sure that everyone who is supposed to be here will be allowed in, and those who are not supposed to be here will not be allowed in. We'll send it back to you guys.
You know, Darcia, you mentioned how you've grown up in Los Angeles. I spent a few years here in Los Angeles, and I tend to forget a lot of stuff, Coleen and Darcia, but I was reminded by my wife that during COVID, Casa Nostra was a restaurant that we found because they had outdoor dining.
Yeah.
And so, you know, tables were far apart, but that was a way for us to get out. And so, you know, my wife was looking at the images and she mentioned the restaurant and reminded me of the fact that we had gone there a couple of times during, you know, another very vulnerable time here for us in our world. So, yeah, you talk about iconic places, you talk about things and places that have been there for a number of years and places that really bring back a lot of memories, though in my case, I needed to be reminded of that memory. But in fact, you know, we all are somewhat linked or, you know, are connected to this part of town as well.
You know, Michael, I'll tell you a little story. Just about a week ago, I came up here through the Palisades because we were doing a story in Malibu, and I stopped here in the Palisades Village, and I thought to myself, you know what, I'd love to spend more time here. I need to bring my family here. I would love to spend more time here. I haven't been here in a while, and I had made a mental note to come back to the Palisades Village because it was all decorated for Christmas, and it was, you know, it was adorable, and I really missed my chance. Coming back in here and seeing it like this is awful, and I don't even live here. I can't imagine the people who frequent these businesses and these restaurants on a daily basis having to come back and see this.
As you've pointed out, the landscape has really changed. I'm kind of curious, Darcia, I know you're limited in where you can go and what you can do, but I know you've also been moving around in that area a little bit tonight. What is it like getting around the streets? I mean, we think we had those terrible windstorms and then the fires. Is there still a lot of debris? What are the streets like out there?
Yes, there is a lot of debris. So a lot of, I'm going to show you really quickly. I think we showed you in our last shot, but we have a lot of this that's happening is these power lines that are de-energized. You see that tangle of power lines that are coming down. Some of them are really low. A lot of them are on the ground. So, you know, just navigating your way around those is difficult. We've seen downed trees. We've seen debris in the road. And then also coming in yesterday, it appears there might have been a water main break because Sunset, there was a portion of Sunset that was impassable because there was just so much water. So, you know, the fire was one thing. The winds also complicated that because there's a lot of debris in the road. And then all of the things that happen after this destruction, you know, it makes it very difficult. And that's one of the reasons why they need to escort people up here and make sure that they're staying safe and make sure that they're, you know, not getting into trouble in that respect, because it is still a very dangerous situation here. I mean, we've had massive buildings collapse, and with that comes glass and nails and all of these things, the hazardous material that is all inside of a building. So again, yeah, this area is going to take a long time just to clean up, and then hopefully to rebuild again.
All right, Darcia Phillips live for us there in the Palisades Village, and you look at those images and you think, where does the cleanup start? How do you begin to tackle all of this?
I was just thinking that the demolition then comes in. You have to clear out the streets, then you've got the demolition, and we're talking about 5,300 plus homes and businesses have been lost in this fire, and it's still going. Only 6% contained at last check.
Right now, we have reporters from our NBC and Telemundo stations across the country helping us with our coverage.
Reporter Daniel Ramirez is live at the Eaton Fire in Altadena with more. Daniel, give us an idea of your exact location there.
Coleen and Michael, we're here, as you mentioned, here in the Altadena community. We had mentioned an intersection that we're currently located on, not too far from some of the main streets here in the area. I'll get that confirmation here on the street of Mariposa, on the corner of Mariposa and El Molino Avenue. And we're basically in the dark, now that you mentioned, especially with several blocks just in our diameter, completely in the dark without any sort of electricity. The only forms of light that we've been getting in the past couple of hours since sunset is a few spot fires that we'll get to in just a sec. The high beams on our company vehicle, just being able to get these live shots going, as well as a few squad cars from the police department along with fire engines making their way around, especially when it comes to those squad cars, the police vehicles, talking about those looters that have been plaguing several areas that have been dealing with the fires in the past couple of days. Not necessarily just here in Altadena, but I'm sure in other areas that have been dealing with the fires. We'll do a little look around here, kind of just of what we have going on. And again, just being able to reiterate a tiny dose of the destruction that has been dealt to this community. And over here behind us, we have what appears to be some sort of business. We see what appears to be some sort of paint cans, just completely pitch black because of the smoke, because of the fire that definitely consumed at some point this business. We have what appears to be, could have been glass, and we can see it here on the sidewalk, just completely, if you step on it, and I mean, just the cracks that we get here at some point, just glass along these walls, the pillars that are still standing, some of the walls here, but we have seen some structures where it's just completely gone, including the walls, including the roof. We see some of the spots here on the trees here just completely pitch black, nothing really be able to salvage. But however, something that has definitely become tough to process, tough to comprehend when doing this coverage, especially in the past couple of hours, specifically here for this Altadena fires. Like we mentioned, we have structures that are completely destroyed, and not just necessarily businesses, but also residencies of people that we've seen gradually make their way in back to their homes. And it's a really just unfortunate situation where they don't really know what they're going to come back to. And like we mentioned, it can be completely incinerated or just making a small walk. We're talking about just a couple of meters, a small alley that divides these two locations. And yet over here, we have a few select small businesses that seem to be intact, as if they were to be ready to open in the next couple of hours tomorrow morning. So it's really just difficult, and just comes to show how unpredictable the winds and the flames can take a toll, and just the amount of just uncomfort especially for the residents making their way back when it comes to figuring out again what they're going to be coming back to.
And of course, we're looking at 0% containment on this fire. Daniel, thank you for that. We appreciate it. Robert Cavassa covering the Palisades fire here for us. I believe we have him now. Hey, Robert.
Michael, Coleen, you know, as we took our drives tonight, again, what was really remarkable when we were driving the side streets in and around Sunset Boulevard here in the Pacific Palisades is really the homes that are still standing. And we have talked and we have witnessed what was a sort of wall of fire that was pushed by the wind that took out entire streets. And then we did go down some streets where on the right side, all of the homes were completely lost. And on the left side, the homes are pristine. It looks like they haven't even been touched, which is really sort of remarkable when you take a look at this video and you see just driving down right now. This is a perspective driving down Pacific Coast Highway and the destruction on both sides of the street. A fire that just went from the Palisades down to PCH and then just roared in both directions. Not just east, not just west, it just went both ways, and it went both ways quickly. So from the overhead perspective, from the driving perspective, and just from walking around, there are truly streets, neighborhoods that have been completely decimated. And every now and then you will see what we have seen with other fires, which is, if you will, a hopscotch effect, whereas an ember can travel and hit one home and then bypass perhaps the home next door to it. that's really an anomaly here in the Pacific Palisades, because that really is not what we have witnessed. Just driving down Sunset Boulevard, and it's sort of incredible to sort of get your head around the fact when you talk about a brush fire, a wildfire, and you talk about one of the most iconic streets in the entire world, Sunset Boulevard, a city street, but the homes that even I'm looking at right here just are all gone, stretching down from, I believe that we are on Iliff and Drummond. And so from there on Sunset, just heading for a couple of blocks, there is nothing on either side of the street. Here, coming back here live, you take a look at the destruction here, and then look at this, you guys. What do you make of that? This is appears to be new construction, and it's completely intact. And it is on a street where I look around in a 360-degree view, and there is nothing left except a home right here that, for some reason, has made it through this fire. And again, this is one of the very few homes that we have seen that is standing in this neighborhood. And from the looks of it, it is looks completely intact. So we have right now the idea when you talk about recovery. I do want to point out when you listen to the president's news conference today that they talked about the hazardous waste and ridding this community of the hazardous waste, the chemicals used to put out the fire, the chemicals used that in these homes. There is so much that they have to worry about before they can even begin the recovery period. Right now, though, the firefight does continue. The LAFD explained to us a short time ago that they do have a fire burning in the hills. It is pushing towards PCH. There are what they described a pocket full of homes there. Difficult area to traverse, difficult to access because of the power lines up there. That means that makes the firefight difficult. There is, of course, plenty of mutual aid here on the ground. And, you know, as one firefighter said, there isn't much left to burn in the Palisades, but they are already looking to next week when they know that the winds are going to pick up again.
All right, Robert, thank you for that. We certainly want to remind people that the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon is on Cozy TV. And if you're looking at the time right now, Michael?
Just after midnight, and we're at hour 61 of our continuous coverage of this wildfire emergency right here in Southern California.
Our David Biggar is back right now. You've heard some of the reporters in the field right now talking about the winds. They feel like they're picking up just a little bit.
Yeah, we are seeing a little bit of that right now across parts of the region. We still have a red flag warning that's in effect through 6 p.m., I guess now for today, now that it's officially
Yes.
Friday. So 6 p.m. for today. But the winds will likely be at their strongest probably during the next couple of hours, and then we'll start to see them taper off as we get into the second half of the day, where the winds will get much lighter, and that's why the red flag warning expires. We're also going to continue to see some air quality issues across the region, probably for today and probably for the next couple of days as the fires continue to burn. Even if the winds do stop, the fires are still happening out there. So here's a look at the air quality currently out there, and you'll notice that we still have Burbank, portions of the San Gabriel Valley, the Crescenta Valley, and downtown LA are still covered with this red color, which is an indication of air quality that is considered unhealthy for everybody, not just for those with respiratory issues. And that would be the orange shaded area here. So if you're within this red area, you really need to just stay inside with your doors and windows closed. And if you do have power, because I know a lot of people right now don't have power still, if you have power, try to be able to run your air purifier, or maybe just turn on your fan inside, like your air conditioner just without the AC running, to try to filter some of that air. There's a lot of particulates in the air right now. If you are outside, or if you have to go outside, make sure you're wearing an N95 or greater mask. That will help filter out those fine particulates. It's called PM 2.5. That's the kind of stuff that can get really deep into your lungs if you're breathing, so you really need to have a mask on if you're outside. But notice where this is all mainly pointed. It's over parts of the basin and then extending off the coastline. It's been mainly from the Eden fire, and I have a feeling that as we get into the next couple of days, we'll still see some of the smoke around the region. In fact, 1 o'clock in the morning here, you can still see the smoke that we're talking about, mainly concentrated in areas adjacent to the fire and just a bit to the south. But as we go through Friday, initially we still have this offshore wind, so most of the smoke is being blown out. But As we get more toward about the middle of the day and then the second half of the day, we switch to an onshore breeze or at least light winds, and that carries some of the smoke back inland. So now you can see, and again, this will all depend on the amount of activity we have for the fires for tomorrow, but you can see that parts of the basin, parts of Orange County, San Gabriel Valley, and even the IE potentially looking at higher concentrations of seeing some smoke out there. And as we go from Friday night into early Saturday morning, a lot of the smoke kind of gets stuck in the lower elevation. So you can see that for at least the midday time frame on Saturday, we're looking at some smoke probably in the IE, around the basin, Orange County. Essentially, everybody's got a chance at it. May not be super thick. It may not be the kind of stuff that's going to be making the sky orange, but it might be just enough to set off some of the air quality sensors across the region. And that's something we're going to watch very closely. Another thing we're going to watch very closely are the winds. So Coleen was talking about the winds picking up in a few spots out there, and we are going to see that as we head toward the morning. I have a feeling for Ventura County and LA County, the peak of the winds will likely be somewhere between about the 4 a.m. and maybe 7 a.m. time frame. And you can see that it's really gusty through the Santa Susana Mountains. That's where we're seeing gusts with this purple coloring here indicating 40 to 50 miles an hour. We might see some of that across the Santa Monica Mountains as well, so Palisades fire, but I think that's mainly the western portions of the fire as you get closer and closer to Malibu, where you'd see some of the stronger gusts. But as we go through the remainder of Friday, as I mentioned, the winds eventually get lighter and then completely shut down as we get into Friday night. Now, this is nice because we're getting a nice break out there, but as we go from Friday night into early Saturday, which you'll notice that the winds start making a comeback, and we are looking at another round of offshore winds from Saturday into Sunday. So this is Sunday morning, for example, and you'll notice that some of these gusts very similar to essentially what we had for today. Same for the IE. You see that as we get into 5 o'clock in the morning for tomorrow, we still have winds south of Cajon Pass. We're seeing that across the Orange County Mountains as well and coming off the Riverside County Mountains as we play through the next couple of hours here. By the time we get to Friday evening, the winds all shut down once again, but they will come back Saturday into Sunday with another round of Santa Ana winds. I guess the good news about this is that this does not look as strong as what we've seen over the past couple of days, but we will still see some pretty strong gusts across the Orange County Mountains. And then one additional note, very far future looking here. We are keeping an eye on another weather system that might be dropping into the region as we get into Monday and Tuesday. This would move the jet stream once again into the position to potentially bring us some very strong winds getting into the Monday and Tuesday timeframe. So we're still working out exactly where this is going to set up. If it moves a bit to the south, a bit to the west, north or east, we would be potentially dealing with different wind situations. So that's something that as we go through the weekend, you'll want to stay on top of the forecast. We're going to also stay on top of it for you. We'll keep you updated because we're just going to see. I have a feeling we're going to have another round of some offshore winds. That's pretty much a guarantee. It's just a question of how strong it's going to be. Right now, it's leaning in the moderate to strong direction. That's the latest on the forecast. I'll send it back to you guys.
All right, David, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
After you.
Okay, I'll take it. California National Guard is in the Los Angeles area here tonight to help support local law enforcement during these fires. Governor Newsom posted a picture of what was happening, but now we have Macy Jenkins live in Altadena, and you actually have some of them there with you.
Michael, we saw that procession right earlier tonight. Well, they are now here in Altadena, as they are in many other places, but they are stationed along Woodbury Road that meets with Lake Avenue, just on the border of Pasadena and Altadena. But this is what we're looking at, that show of strength. These military vehicles that we do not see every day stationed in this area. What are they doing here? They are here to A, support local law enforcement, and B, do anything they can to keep people out of the neighborhood, people who do not belong here, people who might be up to some nefarious activities, might want to be looting in a place where people are already vulnerable. They've evacuated their homes or they've lost their properties. And the California National Guard is here to make sure that these neighborhoods are secure. Now, another thing that law enforcement is doing, along with the California Highway Patrol and local agencies, they are doing checkpoints so that no one can get past certain areas. Only people allowed here are police, firefighters, and media. I want to let you listen to some sound that we got earlier from two National Guard soldiers about why they decided to come here to the area.
It's here to, help protect, make sure people don't go into the evacuation zones and make sure there's no looters around here. We don't want people, even the homeowners, we don't want them to be in danger of the fires and anything else.
kind of relief for helping them, just like they will help us, right? You know, anybody would do that. Sure, I would like it if, you know, somebody came to my house and, you know, protected my block and everything else. But helping everybody, that's what we're here for. It's what I signed up to do. I didn't sign up just to be like some kind of Captain America. That's not my thing. I signed up to, hey, we're here for everybody. I wear the uniform proudly. I love what I do. I wouldn't change it for the world. As much as like, oh, I would like something a little more comfortable, I love what I do.
What's incredible is the joint effort. You see the food, the water, the sustenance that is here. That is the National Guard trying to help out their fellow law enforcement officers. I'm looking at a California Highway Patrolman. I'm looking at a Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputy. They're all in the same location. They're checking in with each other. They want to ensure that each person has what they need in order to continue to work on the aftermath of such a devastating and erratic fire. Again, we have been bringing you so many different buildings, more than 4,000 structures damaged or destroyed in this fire. And they still have to put out hotspots. They still have to contain this thing. So they have to work together to make sure they do everything they can to get it under control so that people can get back into their neighborhoods. And the people who don't know what their homes look like, those people can return and see what is left of their neighborhoods. That's the very latest here in Altadena. I'll send it back to you.
All right, Macy, thank you for that. NBC's Valina Jones is at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. This is perhaps where we've seen the most energy tonight. Yeah. It's after midnight there. This is a grassroots volunteer effort underway even at this late hour, or I should say early hour. Valina.
Yeah, you know, like you said, this is a grassroots effort, all from TikTok. Some street vendors throughout LA started this volunteer effort. We're at a parking lot right across from the Rose Bowl, and you can see just all the donations that are here. This is some of the donations. We see shoes, we see coats, we see clothing for children, for adults, for anyone in need. And we've also met some of those people who have lost everything, who are coming here for this help. One of those people is Talia. Talia and her family were evacuated 2 days ago. And Talia, you told me that your husband's family's home is a complete loss. And so now you guys are coming to try to find help. You know, what has this been like for you the past couple of days?
Well, honestly, it's been hard. It's been hard for everybody. And we're just trying to keep, you know, the faith and be strong throughout everything that's been lost. And, you know, we feel for everyone that's going through this too, because we do have children, and we're just trying to be strong for our kids, because when you lose something that, you know, you have nowhere to go, like it's just I don't know. I just think it's just very hard, and I just have no words. Like I can't explain, you know, because it's never happened. Like I'm 31 years old, and it's like I've never seen something so crazy. And you know, and even in San Diego, you know, and in LA, like you don't see this very often. Yeah. So it's impacted everyone.
Right. Obviously not something that you expect. And you know, you told me you have 7 children, 4 children that are with you, because you actually had to separate your family 2 days ago when you got evacuated. What was that like for you? And you know, how are you guys coping?
Well, we just don't have a choice. We're just having the support from out of town, because we just don't really have family. I only have my husband's side of the family, and even they had to go their separate ways right now, because we don't have enough room for everybody to just, we've been from one place to another since, you know, this chaos. So. Yeah.
Right, and I want to touch on that, because you said, you know, you guys were evacuated 2 days ago, but you've had a hard time finding a place to land. Walk me through that, because as you said, every time you get to a place, you have to move again. Why is that?
Because the fires have been spreading in LA County from one, I don't know, city to city. So,
right.
So yeah, even at his work, he had to evacuate yesterday. Like, it's just been random. Like, it's weird to me because it just seems like they just start random. Like who's doing this or what's causing these fires? Because we don't have answers to that. Like, nobody knows what's going on. Like, everybody's just so, like, just, you know, there's so many questions but no answers. Like, we're just all confused at this point.
I can't imagine the emotion that you and your family are going through. I know your children range from 11 to just 3 months old. You just had a child.
And I had a surgery too, so it's hard, you know, like being from place to place. I can't really move.
Right.
Sometimes I'm still sensitive, you know, and
yeah, obviously your body's still healing from, you know, your last pregnancy and then going through all of this. You know, you told me that tonight you guys are staying here. You're forced to stay in your car, cold conditions, you know, but you also said this is a blessing because you didn't realize that this was here.
Yeah,
so
no.
how'd you find out about this?
Well, I'm a believer, you know, I believe in prayer, and I'm a woman of faith, and I believe that God answers prayer because, you know, the community from TikTok gathered and they're like, hey, you know, go and get some blankets because it's really cold in the car. So they're like, you know what, no, they have clothing, they have diapers, they have formula, they even have food. And I was like, whoa, like that's a big blessing. Like, you know, nobody does things nice for you nowadays. So it's like, wow, like there's still good people out there, you know?
And how do you feel to see all these volunteers? Because we've been here for a couple of hours now. We can feel the energy. We see just how many donations are here. And I know you shared with me, you said, oh, I thought that maybe they had some hot food, maybe they had a blanket, but coming here and seeing all the resources, I know you were shocked. How was that for you?
Honestly, like, I'm very like emotional. Like, I just don't want to cry on camera, but it's just so very like, I just have no words. Like, it's just beautiful to see that people are gathering because you don't see that very often. Like, I came for blankets and they're just giving us like, you know, even shoes, like everything. Like, I don't even know, I haven't even gone around and they already gave us like a whole big bag of like clothing, blankets, and I'm just like in awe. Like, my emotions are everywhere right now. Like, this is very like beautiful in my eyes. It's just very heartwarming. Like, you don't see that. So the fact that we even have to staying in your car, it's not, people think it's like okay, you know, she has a car, he has a car, they have a car, but in reality you don't have the funds, you know. Right now with everything going on, people don't have the funds, you know. It's been hard, you know, for everybody. Like, you need gas to move from place to place, you need money, you need, you know, just resources, you need things, and it's like, it's not easy staying in your car. It's cold, you know, especially if you have children, you know, you have family. Like, it's not easy, you know. You're crumbled up too in a very small space. Like, it's hard for everybody. So I feel for everybody right now. Like, I just want to say, you know, I hope everybody's standing strong, and, you know, I'll be praying for everybody. You know, God is good. Everybody's, you know, together. So that's.
Talia, I'm interested. What are you telling your children in these moments? I know, you know, some of them don't even know what's going on. You have older ones though too. You mentioned, you know, you guys are all huddled up in your car. So what are you telling your kids in this moment?
Well, honestly, I'm just like, hey, baby, like, it's, you know, I call them babies. They're all my babies. I'm sorry. I don't care how old they are. They're my babies. I just tell them, you know, we're going to be okay. You know, like, this is just temporary. Like, mommy and daddy, you know, we're going to make it. We're trying. Like, I don't want to traumatize them to where, like, hey, you know, we're going to see a fire and, like, hey, look at, you know, we need to leave. Or, like, I try to stay calm because, you know, if you react to it, like, you're only making the situation worse. Like, I just don't want to scare them. So he was scared because we seen the fire yesterday. So one of my sons, he's like, Mom, like, is that a fire? And I was like, yeah, but like, firefighters are coming. Like, you know, they're gonna take care of it. Like, we're gonna be okay. And like, we obviously had to evacuate, but like, you know, I try to remain calm in those moments. So I think that's the main thing. Like, you know, it's scary. It's even scary for adults, but like, the thing is just to remain calm, like, and I just tell them, hey, it's gonna be okay, like God is with us, you know, like we're all here, everybody's okay, we're all okay, and there's good people, like they're gonna help us, you know. So that's what I tried to like tell them, you know. That's nothing else I could say, like, because if they see that, you know, like they're gonna know it's a fire, but we just have to remain calm.
Like you said earlier, you know, moms are strong. You're trying to keep it together for your family. Obviously, your children can see the good and the volunteers here. Last thing I want to touch on, you know, we were talking about how much you and your family are going through, and just coming here, how big of a resource that has been. But you also shared with me that you said, you know, that you would volunteer and help people.
Yeah.
You know, talk to me about when you're going through all of this loss, you're trying to take care of your kids, but you still feel compelled to help others.
Yeah. Well, I grew up just, you know, it doesn't matter if people aren't good to you. You always, you bless others and you will be blessed twice as much. So to me, it's like I put myself in other people's shoes. Like, I might be good today, but I can be bad tomorrow. Like you're down right now, but you know, like you're down and you're up. Like we all have our moments. Some are up, some are down. And if I see someone struggling, I'm gonna want to help that person out, because, you know, I don't know when that's gonna be me. It could be me that, you know.
Thank you, Talia, so much for sharing your story. I'm so sorry for what you guys are going through.
Thank you.
Sending
I'm nervous.
Sending it back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you.
All right, Alina, thank you for that.
All right, we want to turn now to NBC4's Darsha Phillips live in the Palisades Village at one of their main intersections there. Hey, Darsha.